Please welcome to the stage, Lauren, the Ronin.
Ready? Jeff the Killer isn't just a story or a collection of stories. Jeff the Killer is a community. Some stories have fandoms, conventions, die-hard stands, but no story operates quite like those select creepypasta. Stories like Slender, like Jeff the Killer, they were put onto the internet, these unknown, unsupported pieces, and they generated a fanbase that usurped the story and now owns it. Sonic.exe, Smile.dog, they don't belong to a creator, and no one in the community really cares. J.K. Rowling owns Harry Potter. She can decide what is and isn't in the canon, what the characters are and aren't, what happens to them. She is the sole dictator of her universe. The fans can only watch and enjoy, or, more often than not, with fanbases surrounding pieces of media, hate her decisions. Lucasfilm and Disney own Star Wars. They decide who gets to put new things into the canon, and a group of bigwigs somewhere who only want to make more money get to shove in and pull out whatever they feel like, and the fans just have to watch and hold their breath. But these creepypastas, they belong to no one man. They belongs to no group of cigar-chewing execs in a boardroom somewhere looking to maximize margins and make a line go up. No. The community owns these stories. The community's made them matter. They picked them up from obscurity and lifted them to unassailable heights. A phenomenon owned by no one man, but the people who care about it. And they get to write their own stories, make their own fan work, and have it be a real part of the story. If Kevin Feige turned around tomorrow and said that actually every character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up till now is being killed off by a ferret god with weasel powers, that's not the line. If Kevin Feige turned around tomorrow and said that actually every character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up till now is being killed off by a ferret with god powers, that would be the new storyline for Phase 5, commencing in a story written and directed by Tommy Wiseau. They just have to take it. Or they don't have to like it. But MCU fans could never escape the fact that that's the universe they had now. That's where these stories ended up. They could pretend not to see it. Well, but it would still be there. But creepypasta isn't owned by any one dictator who says what is and isn't canon. If someone writes a story where Slender Man gets his back blown out by yandere Jeff the Killer, we can all laugh at that, and then move on as if it never existed. And in the same swing, a 12-year-old boy at the back of his ICT class can just bash some keys together for an hour and make the new Slenderverse character Captain Weasel, and the community at large can say, yeah, we like this, grab their hooks and drag it into the widely accepted canon, and it's just part of it now. And then 500 people can draw their Captain Weasel fan art and write their follow-up stories about how Slender and Captain Weasel first met and blew each other's blacks out. And 499 of those stories will be spat back out, and one of them will be held up as the new building block in the House of Slender. In fact, even the widely accepted canon is just that, what is widely accepted. If you like, you can tell it to hit the goddamn road. Grab your power tools and ratchet together your own canon out of whichever stories you like. There's no official body. No one can tell you you're wrong. They'll try. But you can just tell them to get lost. This is a story built by a hive mind. It's built by anyone with an idea and the energy to put pen to paper, and there's nothing else like that. A completely freeform, authorless, open-flowing body of art. Now sure, I'll secede the small caveat that most of it's terrible, but it's still exceptional. I can think of maybe 4 stories that properly fit into this description, stories of real magnitude anyway, where the additions have a level of manic popularity comparable to the original. I imagine there are fanfic pieces like this, ones you get into the Undertale EUs, but those are niche. If you didn't take part in them, you likely wouldn't know them outside of a Super iPad video. But the creepypastas that went big. Slender Man is in Minecraft, one of the most iconic enemies. Jeff the Killer is in some Roblox thing that I have yet to tackle in my research, but we'll get to that later. These things aren't just niche fringe culture, they became pop culture. And that is bananas. So, let's get into... Did you guys hear that? I'll be back in a minute. You lie in the cool comfort of your bedsheets as consciousness swims through your skull, and the breeze of an open window blows gently across your face. A window you didn't leave open. As this realization takes a grasp of your brain, your eyes open to just the slightest dreary squint. And there, in the corner of your room, you see it. A white hoodie hangs over a dress shirt and trousers. Skin, pallid, whiter than a corpse. Its eyes are open so wide that with just the barest moonlight coming in through the now wide open curtain, you can see those eyes, and they're fixed, unblinkingly, on you. In its hand, you can see something glinting with each and every breath that the thing takes. Sweat begins to fill the goosebumps that cover your body, and you suddenly feel ice cold beneath your duvet. You find yourself desperately rushing to figure out how you might just be imagining it. Perhaps, if you lie there long enough, you'll realize he's just a jacket across the back of a chair, your mind filling in the gaps. But each time you dare open your eyes, you see him there, waiting, watching. You can but hope he doesn't hear the sound of your heart thumping so hard in your chest. You could swear you're making the whole bed shake with each and every beat. Somewhere in the panic, as you lay there in the chaos of still silence, your mind finds a new thought that latches on, gripping to your psyche like a thin, flaying tentacle. Who is that? "2015 was to me a landmark year in my formation, as it marked the year that I fell in love with online horror, Nexpo, ARGs, every slasher movie on Netflix, and that truest of love affairs, the creepypasta. If you haven't spent a teenage night or two laying awake in the quiet night air of an empty house and browsing through that niche little vault of online horror stories, then I can't guarantee you were ever truly a teenager at all. See, back in the day, these things were everywhere. Almost inescapable as part of internet culture. Even if you tried to avoid them, you barely could, filling every cranny of your email box and the tightest nooks of your YouTube recommended feed, or whatever they had as a recommended feed at the time. But first question, what is a creepypasta? This is a deeply debatable topic, kind of a chicken or egg type question, by which I mean it mostly depends on where you draw the mostly arbitrary line of what counts as chicken and what counts as an egg. I mean, dinosaurs laid eggs long before chickens, but if we're talking chicken egg or chicken, then what counts as a chicken? What traits in unison define a chicken from what came before? What traits in unison define a creepypasta? To be technical, a creepypasta is defined as a horror-related story which has been shared around the internet by online users. But as even Wikipedia admits, it's become a catch-all for any online horror content. Creepypasta as a term evolved as a corruption of the word copypasta, which refers to pieces of text shared by online users. A classic example is the chain email, in which you'd find your inbox assaulted by Auntie Cassie's stupid bullshit, send this email to X number of people in the next X minutes, unless you hate everyone you love. But there's countless examples spammed into every remotely relevant comment thread these days. My definition of a creepypasta is based on the YouTube narrators who would title any short horror story that they got permission to read as a creepypasta, because that was the brand. But to a lot of people, creepypasta refers to the big boys, the fat lads, the chonker wonkers. We're talking Slender, we're talking Ben, we're talking Toby, Sonic, Squidward, and the dog. These stories were ubiquitous. If you've been on the internet long enough, you've undoubtedly made some kind of encounter with them. Where did these stories fit in our list of definitions? Like that. Where do these stories fit in our list of definitions? Well, they somewhat create and fulfill their own definitions. See, these stories were so lauded and legendary that they generated a bevy of fan stories and editions. These were mostly written by 12-year-olds, as indeed they were the driving fan base. Most of the popular stories are written pretty unnuanced and so edgy, I'd recommend safety goggles lest you cut yourself watching them. So they kind of fit into that original definition. A story passed around the internet, but of course the user is a known entity, and that original story is still found in, for the most part, the one place. But you may notice I've left a little gap here, and that's because this is the topic of today's lecture. Jeff the Killer is probably the second biggest creepypasta of all time, behind Slender Man. The original version was posted in 2011 by Game Fuel TV to the Creepypasta Wiki, telling the story of a 13-year-old boy on the brink of tragedy. In a new town, with his family including brother Lou, and headed to a new school, Jeff finds himself the school bully's fresh meat, the new kid on the chopping block. I think, quite undeniably, from a critical standpoint, when it comes to writing, characters, story, it's not hard to see why this caught on. This story is, in the truest sense of the word, a masterpiece. Shit. It's real bad. Let me give you a rundown of what happens, and then we'll explore that. Welcome to the Cozy Corner, where we'll be reading the story. You're probably wondering why I got changed into the least comfortable outfit of the entire shoot for the comfy, cozy reading nook. Me too. I need to stir this with... Should have thought that through. This is like a fucking quintuple espresso. Spilled it on my blanket. That's gonna stain a lot. Oh, sugar. I need sugar. Oh, I still don't have a spoon. Okay. It's still quite warm. As he and his brother wait for the bus one day, three boys approach with designs to teach the new kids who's in charge. As they try to shake Jeff down for lunch money, the tables are turned when Jeff fights back and drops them all like bowling pins, even after the kids pull knives on them. Did I mention they're 13? They're 13. As the school bus arrives, they flee the scene, but Jeff spends the rest of the day living in the satisfaction of the power rush. Unfortunately, the next morning, the police arrive at their family home, and the cops think it was Lou who beat those kids up. Jeff tries to say it was he who did the deed, but then Lou turns up with a knife, so the officers cart him off to a year in juvie. 2 days later, as Jeff mopes, his mum comes to cheer him up and says they've got a neighbour's birthday party to attend. Jeff resists, but his parents insist, so he finally gets dressed into a pair of dress trousers, an undershirt, and a white hoodie to attend the weirdly fancy kid's birthday party. He starts having fun, playing around, even though the kid's younger than he is, but before he knows it, the festivities are cut short by a trio of vengeful bullies skateboarding in, armed and dangerous. Did I mention they're 13? They're 13. They goad Jeff into a fight by throwing him through a patio door and cracking a vodka bottle over his skull. Did I mention they're 13? They're 13. Until finally, Jeff hits his limit and his psyche snaps. He punches Randy, the main bully kid, in the chest so hard, he stops his heart. The two other boys open fire on him, but he manages to escape up the stairs. Their ammo spent, the two remaining bullies chase him with knives drawn up the stairs. But Jeff quickly sees one off with the hard end of a towel rack, and as he tussles with the final opponent, the two of them knock a thing of bleach off the top shelf and get doused. This is when Keith, the last bully, smiles. "What's funny?" asks Jeffs. "What's funny is, you're covered in alcohol and bleach." A smile forms on Keith's lips as he sparks his lighter. As the flames lick Jeff, he gets lit up like Snoop Dogg in late April. Jeff awakes, bandaged in hospital. His parents tell him that all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed of trying to attack him, and so Lou is returned home. As Jeff gazes upon his new complexion, he bursts into fits of uncontrollable laughter. The doctors attribute this behaviour to the painkillers, and his parents take him home. But later that night, they're awoken by the sound of Jeff carving a smile into his own cheeks. He quickly turns on his parents and kills them with the same knife he used for his own face. Before he wanders out into the night, Jeff takes the time to check in on his brother. Lou begins to stir, finding Jeff's hand on his mouth, and as he begins to struggle, Jeff pulls out the knife and whispers 5 legendary words. "Shh. Just go to sleep." Oh my god, did you just read that thing? There's no way we keep going after that, right? I didn't even mention that he's wearing a cowboy hat when the bullies skateboard in. Did you read that part when he killed that one bully kid by making his heart stop? You're really gonna talk about Jeff the Killer for 2 hours? You're gonna put yourself through more of this? What if it gets like 10 views after all this? How do you keep going? Oh god, they just stood there staring at me. I almost forgot they were there. This bit's gone on too long. You're gonna have to just start talking about it before they click off the video. Where to even begin with this thing? I almost can't believe a story this well known is written this poorly. The paragraphing is a mess, the pacing is screwy as anything, typos, the bare language used is so basic. How and why is Jeff a CQB master, capable of simultaneously taking out 3 armed assailants? Randy, Troy and Keith seem to be the most unnuanced bullies pulled straight from a Stephen King novel. The police? They turn up with unconfirmed information ready to cart Lou off without trial, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, it's you, kid." Like, they're just coming to take the highest bidder. Their mum? It's like 2 days later, and she comes in with this what is described as a happy, sunshiny face. "Hun, your son was just taken to juvie 2 days ago, with no trial." And the fight he has with the roller skating bullies at the end, all strapped up, it all ending with one of them hitting his fucking Joker arc. The funny thing is, you're covered in bleach and alcohol. Fuck you! Bleach isn't even flammable. Okay, so yes, it's a flawed piece, fantastically enjoyable in its dreadful edginess, but low quality. What we've got is a story about a 13-year-old that seems like it was probably written by a 13-year-old that, would you believe it, managed to find its way into the heads and hearts of a whole goddamn lot of 13-year-olds. An exact timeline of events is extremely hard to put together, but this story was uploaded in 2011, and by the end of 2012, fan art, fan stories, and fans were spilling out of the walls. As much as it is flawed, I do understand why. It's not clever, it's not scary, and it's not remotely realistic. No, that's not where Jeff gets his power. Jeff lives on his relatability. A kid just turning the corner into their teens is just becoming aware of the fact that the world is a scary place. And they're starting to get into that rebellious phase, starting to hate their parents' rules. A lot of kids dealing with bullying at this age. And Jeff is a power fantasy. To imagine yourself as this kid able to fight off the bullies like some kind of superhero. And the serial killer thing? It's a way to get control of the world around you. The idea that you're one bad day away from cracking. That teen angst and anger comes from feeling alone and confused in a very, very complex world, and if I actually let it out, the world would see the real me, and then they'd be sorry. So, that's the what, and the why. The next question is, who the fuck is that? This picture of a pale-skinned character with no eyelids and great stretched smile was attached in the original story of Jeff. You could likely tribute a last portion of Jeff's success simply to this image. So, who is this? I mean, clearly, it's not real. It's a heavily edited image, a composite, but who is the base template for this image? Who is this? The original creator of Jeff explained that the picture was of his sister in a mask, and obviously, there's been some editing work added, but there you go. That's the explanation. Right? Well, no, because that was an outright lie. The picture has existed online since long before that. So, who is this? In 2005, a website was made as a place to post videos, photos, audio, and most prominently, streaming, by allowing users to share their webcam to play via Flash Player. This site was called Sticker, and somewhere in there was a streamer, a girl named Anne Robinson, whose live stream was screen capped and the still image posted to the online message board 4chan alongside the caption, "Am I pretty?" 4chan, in their infinite generosity, took up the challenge to see how they could Photoshop the image to be as unappealing as possible. And amongst these photos was this one. It is said that after receiving online harassment, the subject of the photo, Anne Robinson, took the hard exit on life. But don't worry, because this story isn't true! So, who is this? The first appearance of this image has been traced to 2005 Japanese message boards. The first ever verified use of it was on the 24th of July, alongside the caption, "The Fear of Summer Nights," roughly translated. Though, even on this post, there are comments mentioning having seen the image before in other places, so it seems unlikely that this is its first appearance. And throughout the years, several images have been put forth as the supposed elements of the final composite, and it's been suggested that one of the famous versions of the image, because yes, there are multiple slightly different versions, its eyes taken from a Mr. Potato Head toy. And these eyes aren't particularly visible in the version posted alongside the story, having been covered with some black and white dinner plate eyes instead. But until such a time as someone manages to find another crumb in the trail, it seems to have long since run cold. Whoever this was originally, and whoever uploaded it originally, I don't think we'll ever find it. So unless someone credible comes forward with information, I don't think we'll ever know who the face behind Jeff the Killer is. But doesn't that, just a little bit, make it better? There's an Indiegogo campaign trying to fund a bounty to be put on the head of the unedited original picture, and that was made in the last year, so this is an ongoing hunt. Fan investment still exists in the search for lost media. Not particularly a surprise when you remember the size of the Jeff fan base, and the level of investment most of these fans have. And speaking of which... Now we get into the serious nitty-gritties of Jeff. The fanbase did two main things: create season C's and C's of fan content, and have a crush on Jeff? Let's start with one, and then we'll get to the other when we get to it. Let's start by talking about the biggest and most notable Jeff the Killer fanfic content there is. 2011's Jeff... Hey, wait a minute! Yes, indeed, 'tis true, I am a liar. As I hope more than a few people have already noticed and left a comment to raise my interaction, the story I took you through at the top of this video is not in fact the original Jeff the Killer story. The first piece of Jeff the Killer lore, told alongside this legendary artwork, was a Newgrounds video uploaded by user Killer Jeff. I didn't mention this until now because the 2011 story is by far the most popular piece, as well as being what kicked off the Jeff the Killer craze. So, what is the deal with the Killer Jeff Newgrounds video? It's 2.5 minute video to start off with, something more akin to a slideshow presentation with a backing track. The backing track, by the way, was I Guess You're Right by the Posies, which kind of explains why the original version is no longer available. Licensed music and all. However, another upload exists and remains available using different music, and it tells the story of Jeff, who was cleaning his bathtub with sulfuric acid when he had an oopsie. The upload of the version, Killer Jeff, is better known as Saussure, and his lore for Jeff the Killer varies greatly from the popular version. I found a Reddit article posted by someone who has since deleted their account, claiming to have spoken to Saussure, and inquired into a lot of Saussure's canon, and it's kind of amazing. I read like half of it, and then had to stop myself so I could react to it on camera. Saussure, the original creator of Jeff the Killer, was contacted by a Reddit user named Deleted somewhere about 4 years ago, and they asked him a bunch of questions. And Saussure's canon is so entirely different, and it's all the more entertaining remembering that this was 4 years ago, so this would have been 2019. The original story was written in 2008, so Saussure is no doubt an adult now, and yet they still seem to really hold on to their original canon of Jeff the Killer, which at this point is just so irrelevant to anything. Like, I'm not trying to downplay their creative strides, their creations. You know, be proud of what you've made, but also, like, at some point you have to accept, it's not really my story anymore. So I just find it very funny reading through this completely alternate original canon that he made, or they made. We don't actually know their gender. We don't really know anything about Saussure as a person. So, creepypasta name, Jeff the Killer. That remains the same. That's all good. Real name, Jeffrey Jeff C. Hodek. So, his original name was Jeffrey Hodek, not Jeff Woods. He was born on September 22nd, 1982. And as of 2017, he is 35 years old, 2 years older than his brother Lou Roman Hodek. Lou Roman Hodek, so that his Lou's middle name is Roman, who is 33 years old. Jeff has, and still has, dark brown hair and green eyes. Jeff was actually involved in a sulfuric acid incident. His burns did not involve flame. The event happened in his own house at the age of 21. He was not 13, and no bully set him on fire. It's all in capitals. Every word starts with a capital. I didn't even notice that. Saussure wrote every word with a capital. The acid was from cleaning products that had split in his bathtub in the process of cleaning his bathroom, leading his face to get third-degree burns. He does have a face. He does, in face, have a nose, presumably supposed to say in fact. It's described as slits for nostrils. So he's less of a Joker ripoff and more of a Voldemort ripoff in the original version. He also never burnt his eyelets with a lighter. His eyelets just became a bit red and irritated from the acid. I don't even know where the lighter thing came from. It's mentioned several times that he burned his eyelids off if you look in different places, but I don't know where that actually came from. I think that's just sort of a general lore, like no particular story. Jeff has never stabbed Lou, nor did Jeff kill or attempt to kill their parents. So he's just a guy, basically. Didn't do anything. He's just a dude. He's just a dude who was in an accident. Jeff has a close bond with his brother and would never hurt him. Jeff is asexual, meaning he has no interest in sex at all. Okay, cool. I mean, that's fair. Lou is still very close with Jeff. They live together, go golfing together, and tell each other everything. Lou is the only person who knows that Jeff kills. On the mic at stand-up night, am I right? It's just such a wholesome, normal dude who's slightly disfigured. He kills people sometimes. Jeff is 5'7", 5'10". He's an average weight, responsibly lean, and slightly muscular. He keeps himself fit by self-discipline, taking LSD and painkillers. He keeps himself fit by taking LSD. What a legend. The old Longshore Drift, dude. Jeff doesn't kill children and or avoids doing so. Why did he have that candy truck then? He has the candy van in your original video, Sasua. What's he doing with those children if he's not killing them? He feels the children have purity and can be good in life. Well, so he's not really that bad of a guy. His theme song is not Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by Marilyn Manson. Jeff's official theme is I Guess You're Right by the Posies. I suppose I haven't really mentioned it. His theme song, I've used at several points throughout this video, is Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by Marilyn Manson. And there's a very famous cover by, famous in the circle, cover by a man called Myuu, whose music I've also used throughout this. It's a piano cover. Myuu is a legend. He lets you use his stuff as long as you give him a little bit of credit. So thank you, Myuu. Jeff's official catchphrase is... Are you ready? Because it's not... Remember, his normal catchphrase is go to sleep. Jeff's official catchphrase in the Sasua canon is it's joy, it's joy, it's joy. Which sounds like it sounds like it was written in Japanese and just didn't translate very well. But his first words before killing his first victim, his neighbor, was, "This kid needs to go to sleep." Jeff has his own personal demon that torments him called Angus. This is amazing. I'm so glad I found this. Is a really Scottish demon that torments him, apparently. His nose was severely damaged by the acid and only has slits for nostrils, barely noticeable with his ghostly face. You already said that, but cool. Jeff was hauling a gallon of acid in his bathroom to clean out his bathtub. He slipped on a bar of soap, in which he fell, and the acid splashed all over his face, damaging his face. The neighbor heard his cries for help and took him to the hospital. Lou was at work, but came over to the hospital as soon as he heard what happened to Jeff. Never again was Jeff the same. His current status is unknown at the time. I'm assuming that's like whether he's alive or dead, not relationship, because we know that he's not interested in sex. He's asexual, which I respect. We need more asexual representation in media. Height 5'7" to 5'10". I guess the acid must have burned him down a couple inches. Weight 141 pounds. That's very specific. His height, which wouldn't fluctuate. That's between 5'7" and 5'10", but his weight is 141 pounds, no matter what date or time it is. Noticeable features: heavily damaged face, long, sharp black nails on one hand. Yo, there's Marilyn Manson up in here. Damage from self-defense throughout his career. Allies: his brother Lou, the Roman Hodak. It's such an in-depth canon as well. That's what I love about it. There's so much. He's got so much. Like, he must have written a bunch of extra canon for this at some point, and just no one cares. Enemies: young bounty hunter, special SCU agents. I think they must have just made this up when they were asked the questions, and they were like, fuck it, I'm just gonna put some shit down. I just don't. It's so insane. He uses all sorts of... Oh, this is my favorite. This is where I stopped when I was reading it. He uses all sorts of weapons he can get his hands on, from his bare hands all the way up to a Uzi. He used to use a kitchen knife for some of his early kills. He most recently is equipped with a hunting knife with a sheath and a utility belt with assorted tools. Throwing darts, flares, chloroform, explosives, flashlights, surgeon mask, and he occasionally wears... Oh, a surgeon mask that he occasionally wears to hide part of his face, usually removed or damaged during the final Survivor segment, where Jeff is bested by final Survivor and injured, thus retreating to kill another day. So Jeff is like in Sasua's headcanon, there's... Jeff is basically like a Freddy Krueger type who keeps getting defeated by the final girl at the end, and then having to come back for the sequel. And there's just like 4 or 5 like... Oh, I love it so much. Family: Lou, Roman Hodak. Oh my god, he repeats himself so much as well. Weapon of choice: kitchen knife. I thought you said it was a Uzi. Well, I guess you said he uses a Uzi, all the way up to a Uzi. Type of killer: sociopathic serial killer. Powers: skills, hand-to-hand combat. Enhanced senses. Yes. Very specific. Thank you, Sasua. Athleticism: slightly above average. Can outrun most people and climb really quickly. Inhuman durability. Not exactly inhuman, but he's pretty durable. Any attacks, is he durable enough to kill his own parents? Not exactly inhuman, but he's pretty durable. Any attacks that would cripple an average adult male would cause Jeff to be stunned for a few seconds before shaking it off and going in for the kill. He has a high pain tolerance, able to survive 3 shots in the abdominal, very specific, and still stand but get fatigued with a handgun. And he can heal a bit quicker than average people. For example, a person had a basic scratch, it takes 5 days for it to heal. Now with Jeff's basic scratch, the same type previously stated would heal almost completely overnight. He can take a good amount of punishment before he's neutralized. He was like slow Wolverine. Inhuman stamina. His stamina is slightly below average. He's able to stay on someone's trail for about 5 minutes before he gets winded and takes a break. His stamina does, however, replenish rather quickly. What he lacks in stamina, he makes up for in speed. He's like a horse. High speed. Another attribute that he's superb at. His speed is very impressive. Able to keep up with a speeding car for about 9 seconds before resting. Wow! It started off sounding impressive and then became really unimpressive. How fast is the car speeding? If he could go like 120 miles an hour for 9 seconds, I mean, that's a solid sprint. It's like Usain Bolt, but then Usain hits the finish line and is like, I need to sit down, guys. I need to have a tea. Major skills. The skill improves over the course of Jeff's career. The first year of killing people, he would make rookie mistakes and ending up getting wounded. Early in his career, Jeff was more aggressive, arrogant, reckless, and sloppy with his kills, resulting in his victims more brutal demise due to him not being Jesus Christ, that's a long sentence. Precise and professional as he would soon be later in his career, and as well skilled enough not to make rookie errors and overcome more people who face him. As it now became later Jeff's career, he became more disciplined, more skilled with the art of murder, as well as knowing the human body to attack the weak spots for cleaner and more professional kills, only every once and a while being brutal just for the hell of it. His cocky and sardonic personality during his early career have been changed with more of a stoic and determined demeanor. His occasional sardonic quips showing that despite improving his combat skills, he'd never lose in morbid satirical personality, but only keeping them more subtle than before, and his increased strength. What the fuck does any of that mean? What the hell did you just say, Sasua? I understood none of that. Psychopathy. Very unhinged. He sees humanity as a blight and believes he's doing the right thing. He has a shred of humanity inside him due to Lou's love and support. Jeff's ultimate goal is to get rid of the wicked and live with his brother on an island somewhere away from the corrupted society he despises. Without Jeff's brother to help him, Jeff may have died much sooner. Jeff is also haunted by a personal demon of his nicknamed Angus Grimville, a horrifying and sinister entity that feeds off of misery. Jeff is a tortured soul doing a torturer's job. Wow, okay, that last line was weirdly poetic, considering the rest of this is... he also used the word sardonic at one point, despite the fact that they don't seem to understand basic sentence structure beyond that. I have no understanding of who Sasua is as a person. It makes no sense to me who you could be. Can you tell me... I'm reading the comments now. Can you tell me or send some link when he could keep up with a speeding car? What do you mean? He's not a real... This was 11 months ago someone posted that. What do you mean? He's not a real guy. What do you want? A link to what? I assume that somewhere in 2011, someone happened across Sasua's video and felt inspired to make and revamp the story. In the wake of the 2011 version, the fan base waxed into an absolute phenomenon, and soon everyone and their grandma is writing JTK fanfic, because the original writer never really came back to add their own lore. It fell to the fan base to make their own. This makes Jeff into this really interesting piece of crowdsourced storytelling, where the accepted canon is chosen purely by popularity. The biggest and most well-known piece of Jeff the Killer fanfiction has got to be Jane the Killer, who was introduced in 2012 by author Fear the Black Wolf in a story titled Born of Science. Jane the Killer. It tells the tale of Jane Richardson, a young girl working in IHOP trying to pay rent for her and her sister since the loss of her parents, who were killed by Jeff, who, after the original story, has become a prolific serial killer, the most prolific serial killer. To the reading nook. Welcome back to the Cozy Corner. We're going to be here a little bit for the next little section, so settle in. Let me tell you about Jane Richardson. So, one day after she finishes work, she hits up the local blood bank because they're offering to pay 5 times the normal amount for blood. After, she gets a call asking her to come back and donate blood once again the next week, but this time they're offering $10,000. Of course, she takes this up, and when she arrives at the blood clinic, the FBI show up in a stretched limo and take her to a secret lab, saying something vague about Jeff the killer. Through all this, she seems mostly unfazed. She gets into the limo filled with FBI agents without hesitation. When they get to the lab, however, and she sees what looks like 25 bodies under sheets in a room she passes, and the agents still won't really answer what's going on, she begins assaulting them on instinct. Doesn't get her too far though, and before she knows it, she's tied to a chair with her blood being siphoned out and purple stuff, known only as liquid hate, being put back into her veins. She dies, only for a moment, but as she falls into that unknowable place beyond, she's met by her parents, victims of Jeff, who comfort her back into life. She then has a 90-second homicidal rage, which the scientists knew would happen, and yet appear to have made no precautions against, as the girl, now endowed with super strength, starts bursting through the place and killing doctors and agents one after another. She chills out after 90 seconds, and it's all good, baby. Water under the bridge. The new Jane has pale skin and big black eyes and hair to match. Basically, Alexandria's Genesis vibes. She has super strength, eyesight, and a healing factor that makes her pretty much invulnerable. She gets administered some tests, and then the doctor just sort of pervs on her, because apparently she was naked throughout all this. Then she leaves. So that's a bit odd. But yeah, they just let her go, and she heads home. The first and only survivor of liquid hate blood replacement. As she heads home to her sister, she vows to find and kill Jeff, who, need I remind you, is just some guy with birds who sneaks into people's homes, and she's Wolverine. And that's the story of Jane the Killer, born of science. I'm surprised the FBI just let her leave like that, given that she is an incredibly valuable walking tank. The story is better written than Jeff the Killer, but it's obviously still got a lot of weird plotting. After the main Jane story, there is Jeff the Killer versus Jane the Killer. Clever title. The original text of this one was lost, so we've only got the Mr. Creepypasta YouTube narration. Because of that, I can't run over it for the important bits, so I'll just tell you the important bits from my memory, bearing in mind that it has been a week since I listened to it. Reading nook. Jeff's bumming around his old hometown when, invading a home, he finds a note addressed to him from Jane saying she's going to find him and kick his ass. I didn't know if this is a thing she's been doing in every home, hoping he'd at some point stumble across it, or if she knows where he is, in which case, why would she not have already confronted him? I don't know. But anyway, he kills the people who live there, save for the baby, so, deep down, he's not really that bad of a guy when you think about it. Later, he goes to, a bar or something, and gets solicited by a prostitute, and he plans to take her back and kill her, but then at some point he gets drugged and knocked out, and when he wakes up, he's been tied up by said prostitute, which is when he realizes it's Jane. Jane then futzes around for a bit, before Jeff summons super strength and breaks loose from his bindings. So one of the things in the Jeff lore is that this incredible homicidal rage basically gives him superpowers, including super strength, speed, and enough durability to overcome his brother and parents simply by gutting them, to quote multiple wiki entries I came across. My parents have to be at least hung, drawn, and quartered to finish them off, so I guess I'm just not that durable. Jeff breaks free of his restraints and knocks out Jane, and when she wakes up, she's in a vice, and he breaks her arm, which I think she can just heal off, right? She gets loose, they fight around the place for a bit, and then, near the end, the ghosts of his family come and start slashing him up, and then the house catches fire from a stray lightning bolt, and next thing you know, he shrugs off the vengeful ghosts and stabs Jane, and we fade out to some doctors autopsying Jeff's body, and they discuss at length how strange it is that he's been gutted and killed but has no burns, even though he's like, all burns, that's like his whole thing. But he stirs awake, and that's the end. It seems he can survive being gutted, so presumably his children are not as durable as he is. So, that's the story of Jane the Killer and the Jeff the Killer lore. Right? We're done talking about Jane. We've talked about Jane Richardson, but what about Jane Arkansas? Yes, indeed, there are two entirely separate entities, both named Jane, and both integral parts of the wider Jeff lore. Jane Arkansas is a 13 to 14-year-old girl in her breakout story living in the small town Jeff and his family moved to. In fact, this Jane was there when Randy and the gang attacked Jeff at the bus stop. She saw it herself. She watched Jeff all day at school as he excitedly walked the halls with a joyous smile on his face, and she was next door in her room. That fateful party happened, the one where Jeff became Jeff the Killer. She tried to help when she saw the flames, and she sat with him when he was fighting for his life in a hospital bed. Jane watched from her window the day Jeff came home, saw those empty, soulless eyes and that wretched smile of his, and when she awoke to find her house empty, she grabbed a knife from her kitchen as Jeff tapped on her window. Jane looked at the bodies of her family, and Jeff's, with great bloody smiles carved into their faces, tied to a dining room chair. She couldn't get free, and she burned as Jeff doused her in alcohol and bleach as he lit the match. But when she awoke in the hospital, she wasn't like him. Not bearing the white smile, the pale skin, and not filled with that homicidal rage. And when the nurse came in with that package of clothes and the mask to cover her leathery skin and hairless head, with that knife she dropped in her kitchen, she made a vow to hunt Jeff to the ends of the earth, to find him, to end him. It's then that she dons upon herself a new name, Jane the Everlasting, so that she might be the only thing to outlast Jeff's hate and his terror. This story is titled Jane the Killer, the real story, and in it she even claims the Jane the Killer picture we saw attached to Jane Richardson as being of her, and the quote, "Don't go to sleep, you'll never wake up," as well. So, this is clearly written by someone in the fan base attempting to overwrite Born of Science for reasons I can't speak to. At first, Arkansas was considered a fan story, non-canonical to the Jeff universe, but as she grew in popularity, eventually the creator and writer of the Jane the Killer story, Fear the Black Wolf, accepted her as another existing character alongside Richardson, but not the same character. In fact, apparently the two don't get along, despite their clear physical similarities and goal of finding and killing Jeff. So, with Nina the Killer, I tried to find a good reading on YouTube, hopefully from Mr. Creepypasta to listen to, while getting on with work, but it turns out no one has particularly done a reading on YouTube outside of some Draw My Lives, so I read it myself, and about 3 paragraphs in, I understood why no one has read it, because it's fucking unreadable, mate. This thing's a mess. It's horribly equal to the original story, which is to say pretty bad. The two Jane the Killer kind of got my hopes up that the fan stories were better quality, and that's why the fan base started picking them up and adding them to the canon, but it turns out that's more of a guideline than an actual rule. Nina the Killer is one of the worst creepypastas I've ever read, and I have read a lot of creepypastas. I've read creepypastas you've never heard of. I've read creepypastas that I could never find in the annals of the No Sleep subreddit if you gave me 1,000,000 years, and this is worse than any of them. I would read The Ugly Barnacle 18 times over before settling in for Nina the Killer again, and to be fair, The Ugly Barnacle goes hard, but that's beside the point. Now, I might be exaggerating a smidge, but Nina the Killer is impressively bad. It's basically Jeff the Killer gender flipped, written even worse and with several details stripped out. Let me show you what I mean. Nina is a young girl with a brother, and his name is Chris. She's not new in town, but she is obsessed with Jeff. One day, Nina and her brother are attacked on lunch break by school bullies, 3 of them, and she fights back, using their own knives to stab them, and then she runs away. She spends the rest of the day smiling maniacally, and at home, when her mother asks about her day, she says it was great. The next day, Nina finds a note in her locker. Someone saw her yesterday, and was impressed, though they leave their identity a mystery. An unspecified amount of time later, Chris and Nina are playing in the park. However, as night falls, she realizes she's lost track of her brother. She finds him beaten and bloodied at the hands of the bullies she beat up at school. She rushes him to the hospital, but he's in a bad way and has to stay overnight. The next day at school, she receives another mysterious note offering her sympathies for her brother and offering to be her friend, though their identity remains undisclosed. Weeks later, school picture day. Nina puts on her favourite purple hoodie for school, which isn't important plot-wise, but it is the iconic outfit Nina wears in any fan art. At some nondescript point of day, in an unspecified location, Nina finds herself struck in the face, and who else is standing behind the fist but 3 bullies. Claudia, Malcolm, and Yoni. The bullies pull out guns and open fire on Nina, who quick as a flash darts into an abandoned house. I thought they were still at school, but I guess not. Nina ends up trapped in a bathroom where she grabs an iron bar and goes to work. She jumps out of the room and domes Yoni, dodging the gunfire. It's this point where her psyche snaps, notably after killing a child. She kills Malcolm, and then her brother asks if she enjoyed it, and she says yes, and then she just goes home, leaving Claudia. Like, it's not written like she lets her live to tell the tale. It's written more like the writer forgot to write a paragraph where she kills him. You know what? I don't think I can do it justice. I don't think I can properly explain what we're dealing with any better than just by reading you an excerpt. Nina felt that she is being followed when she turned her face to her back. She received a punch in her face and she fell to the ground. Then she saw her brother. He was caught in the arms of Malcolm. Nina tried to get up, but she received another punch in the belly. She fell back to the ground, and she looked up. She saw Claudia. "At last I have found you, bitch," said Claudia, while standing in front of Nina. "This is my revenge for attacking me last time," she said, while pulling a gun. "I don't want to fight you," Nina said, while trying to stand up. Claudia immediately shoots Nina with her gun, but Nina quickly reacted to it, and she avoided the bullet. Nina stood up and ran as fast as she can to an abandoned house nearby. It was locked inside, so she climbed up to the stairs. The trio tried to shoot her with a lot of bullets, but they couldn't successfully shoot her. Nina went inside in the bathroom, and she was trapped there. She wanted something to defend her. "Nina, are you going to stay there? Did you forget what I did to your little brother? You idiot!" Claudia shouted from outside the abandoned house. Nina suddenly felt a combination of hatred and anger and that need to kill someone. Nina looked around the room. She saw an iron rod. A twisted smile formed on her face. She took the iron rod and left the room. She quickly dodged the bullets and hit Yoni through the head, releasing a stream of blood. Some of the blood went on Nina's face, and there, something that changed her, something broke, like a thin thread had broken. That thread that divides sanity from insanity. So that's what we're dealing with. That's the level. I mean, what do you say? Do you get what I mean? Do you understand? Canst thou fathom? She heads home, writes a note that no one may ever read. Don't know what she writes. It never comes up again. Why bother mentioning it then? So, with all of this crazy shit going on, her psyche broken, you know the drill. She decides it's time to take the next step to being more like Jeff. She's rooting around the house for alcohol and bleach when she realizes someone is standing in the doorway. It's him, the man, the myth, the legend. It's Jeff. He gives Nina a hand with the job and douses her in bleach and alcohol before lighting her up. Later in the hospital, she takes off the bandages to see her bleached white skin and black hair, though she still has that cute purple streak in it still. Then her parents take her home. She kills them that night. And then her brother... Oh, and there's this thing of her calling her brother my prince. So she says, "Just go to sleep, my prince." And when she kills him, and that's like her catchphrase from here on out. Did I mention Nina is 11? This is a 7.2 on creepypasta.com. Over there. This has a 7.2 on creepypasta.com, which just blows me away. I think Nina comes from very much the same place as Jeff, living off her relatability, and certainly not the quality of her story. If you were a teenage girl obsessed with Jeff the Killer and wanted a story that made you feel like you could defy your parents and take control of the world around you, then you got Nina. Sorry about that. Homicidal Lou, as you might glean from the name, is the tale of a Lou that survived his encounter with Jeff the night they came home from the hospital. It is appreciably short, but it is notable that there are multiple different tellings of his origin. The main things to know are this. Lou's psyche snapped the night Jeff killed his parents and tried to kill him. He survived, but the trauma of the event caused him to have a dissociative personality, his other half calling itself Sully. When he woke from the hospital, having had his gut sewn back in, the nurse referred to Jeff as a demon and a psycho, and as a response he grabbed some nearby equipment and silenced her for good before fleeing the hospital. That's when the original story ends, but of course in the endless expanse of the Jeff the Killer lore there were more than a few fans willing to pick up the thread and take it to its inevitable Jeff versus Lou conclusion. Most prominent rendition is mercifully short. It sees Jeff wandering aimlessly when happening across his old home. This happens a lot. I'm not sure if it's clear, if you haven't read the mountains of different adaptations, how often this motherfucker stumbles across his old home. I get that it's the most recognizable location from the original story, but every time this guy looks up and realizes he's there, he's got to be like, shit. Here we go again, because it always ends with some wild boss fight. This time, he's up against Lou, who immediately attacks Jeff and tackles him through the patio door. They tussle. Lou eventually throws him through another window where he falls 10 feet onto the concrete below. But before Lou can finish the job, Jeff, still just about clinging onto consciousness, slips a knife into his side, and as the ambulances approach, the battle comes to a draw. Who called the ambulances? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm going to stop recounting lore here, because honestly, I could keep going forever. Do you understand how much of this there is? The stories, the fan art, the number of foreign language raps? There are so many. Some of them have like millions of views. This rabbit hole is an almost endless abyss, and I fear if I gaze too long into the abyss will gaze back into me. Let's stop here before all our collective psyches snap, but just know that there is Jeff the Killer v Slenderman, Jeff versus Laughing Jack, Jeff versus Toby, Jeff.avi, Smile.jeff, stories where Jeff and Jane have extended, violent, passionate sex, and so much more. This table, put together by Reddit user Sephorabrsainvibes, shows the most recognized Jeff the Killer stories, the timeline, the notable events. The thing was a godsend and helped me so much, and it has like 5 likes on Reddit. People just have no respect. I have not read every story, nor have I plans to. I genuinely am not sure the human mind is built to withstand that. But if this video gets enough interest, I'll look into it. I'll do a full lore video of the full, uncut timeline and the story of Jeff the Killer and his EU. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, leave a comment, like this video, and if there is enough support, I will test the limits of the human mind. So, now you understand a little of the Jeff the Killer lore, it's time for you to learn about the event. In October of 2015, Steam Phoenix posted on the Creepypasta wiki a poll to determine the fate of Jeff the Killer. Proposal: deletion of Jeff the Killer. Yes, you read the title right. I'm proposing the penultimate permanent deletion of Jeff the Killer. A popular, bad quality story that makes a mockery of our standards and defies belief with its popularity. Why? Because it's the only way to end the argument. It doesn't pass the QS, it's that simple. The only reason we're having this vote is because of its popularity. Jeff the Killer's writing is atrocious. It uses a lot of awkward phrasing, grammatical errors, and it rates the thesaurus, for lack of a better phrase. there was definitely a better phrase. We have at least a dozen blogs by users who point out the flaws within the story. How do 12-year-olds have guns and why are they using them in a crowded party? What the hell is a thing of bleach? Did you know bleach isn't flammable? And it takes more than just that bit of stuff happening to drive someone insane. Not to mention the writing is unnatural, there's no real flow to it. This wiki isn't an archive for any pile of crap. It would have already been long gone in the deletion log if it weren't for the fact that it is popular. We gave Sonic.exe the Walk of Shame treatment. For what reason is this story different? The vote was held, a bell was tolled. Jeff the Killer was removed from the Creepypasta wiki for not meeting quality standards. But in closing this door, Creepypasta Wiki decided to give the people an opportunity to open a window. Upon the suggestion of Banning K, 1979, a competition to rewrite Jeff the Killer, and the winner would be put onto the Creepypasta Wiki and become the new official Jeff the Killer story. 5 judges were chosen to arbitrate, and the stories came rolling in. To make sure voting was fair, the head judge and competition organizer had developed a thorough system. Trust me, the decision to go with the public poll was a difficult one. This turning into a popularity contest is the last thing we want. We won't be using the poll system, the one you see at POTM. We found a neat little poll system off Wikia that I'm sure will serve us well. We'll not be showing the results, and we won't display who wrote what. We'll just provide links to the stories, no names attached, and the public will vote without knowing the current standings. The only way this thing turns into a popularity contest is if people cross-reference the links back to the writers. But that's too much work, so I highly doubt it'll happen. Also, this will be pretty hard to rig, as I can see where the votes are coming from. Without much accuracy, but still. I hope this answers your concerns. And as the floodgates opened, the stories came in, competition was fierce, and discussion swelled in anticipation. Who would be Jeff's new champion? So winners will be announced on the 15th?
I wonder who's
I've
gonna
been
win.
waiting with
Mr.
bated
Duper
breath to
mentioned
see if
the
my
off-wiki
entry
poll
managed to make the top
system.
5.
Is it too late to enter the contest?
When's
With the
voting
contest
start?
nearing
I
its
don't
end,
think
I'd just
I
like
ever
to
want
thank
to
everyone
enter
for
the
their
contest.
this ends when it strikes
But I
midnight
just
on
think
Halloween
it's
night.
best rewrite ever.
I'm right there with you. My pasta, Jeff the Killer in Space, unfortunately wasn't completed until after the deadline. It portrays Jeff as a spacefaring emo pirate who gets bullied by the Grand Master of the Galaxy, the evil Troytron. Lou is his faithful green alien sidekick. In the end, Jeff goes crazy and eats an entire planet over the course of 1 million years. Oh. Neat. There was even discourse among the eager contenders as Banning K 1979 tried desperately to cut his story down to a legal length. Okay everyone, let's try this again. I put on my butcher's apron and chopped this bad boy down quite a bit. It is now right under 10k words, so there should be no concerns about length. Submitted once more, my Jeff the Killer remake. Was there any real point to having Williamson turn up? Just saying, you could probably use the word count for something more important. Maybe it's just me, but I didn't like this one too much. Just felt like a bloated version of the original. Still has the bullies be incredibly over-the-top evil without a single sympathetic quality in sight, and they kind of just disappear from the story completely. Jeff and the parents are much better developed characters, true, and Jeff actually has a motivation to kill as opposed to I got set on fire and now I'm evil, but there really doesn't seem to be anything new or original in it apart from that. The only thing that really changed was the semantics of it all. Banning responds. Most of the concepts you are describing are meant to serve as focus for Jeff's rage and push him further into that mental state. The corrupt cop serves to demonstrate how the town is rejecting Jeff by defending its own rather than investigating and upholding the law. It also serves to further isolate Jeff from his new surroundings. Lou being sent away is designed to further demonstrate the emotional distance between the brothers and their parents. It also works to show that the parents are capable of being petty while pretending to discipline their kids. And while I would have loved to have developed Randy and his pals a bit more, there is honestly only so much that someone can do with 10k words. While editing down a 20,000 word piece to 10,000 is impressive, it doesn't change the fact that Dr. Bleed and Levi both managed to portray the bullies as actual characters as opposed to cartoon villains. Sorry, but holy shit, this thing goes on so long. Just know that this continued. Tensions were high, the war was hard fought, the contenders fought bravely on, new entries surging in day by day until that fateful Halloween night in 2015 when the competition finally came to a close. Over the next month, months rolled in.
Over the next month, months rolled. What the fuck did that? I meant votes rolled in. I meant over the next month, votes rolled in. Pretend I said that.
And tallied up, and the community could do nothing but wait. November passed, December arrived, and merely a few days into their advent calendars, the fans would develop their champion.
Did I just say developed the champion? Delivered. They were delivered their champion.
December 6th, 2015. The top 5 were posted, each with their own unique take.
I didn't say anything wrong this time. It's just like rule of threes in comedy, so I felt like I should come back one more time, just see what's going on. You alright? You enjoying the video? You having fun? I hope so. It'd be strange if you watched this far and you hate it. Well, anyway.
But the top spot, the herald of a new age of Jeff, was none other than Banning K 1979, the commenter who suggested the competition be held in the first place. It was his idea to do this thing, and it was his role to end it. Okay, so you might notice that we're in a slightly different location to the cozy corner, and that's because I didn't like the old shot, and also because I didn't like the outfit, so I got into my cozy jumper. The background, the set, that's gotten less comfy. Me, I've gotten more comfy, so hopefully it evens out. What that means is that you can look over here and see relevant bits of information about characters and locations that I don't have the energy to say every single time I bring them up, but that you can use to quickly familiarize yourself if you've forgotten who a character is. And the reason I've also done this is because we're going to be here for a little bit, and you're going to learn why in a minute after we finish talking about Jeff the Killer 2015. So, without further ado, let's talk about Jeff the Killer 2015. Jeff is a young kid in a new town with only his brother for a friend. On a day with a crisp blue sky, the brothers adventure out on their bikes to a local video store, remembering fondly the one they left behind in a different city, New Orleans to be specific. But here in the town of Mandeville, Louisiana, they're outsiders. As they browse the shelves, the store attendant points to a group outside, riding Jeff and Lou's bikes around and crashing them into the pavement. The boys rush out to confront the group. Jeff tries diplomacy, but Randy, Troy, and Keith are not interested in peace. We learn from the narrator that Randy's father is the head of a law firm in town, making Randy the son of the most well-known and wealthy man in Mandeville, and as such, neither he nor his lackeys are used to anyone talking back to them. Jeff tries to avoid a fight, but when Troy takes a swing, the choice is out of his hands. Lou dodges Troy's punch, but he doesn't see Keith's coming. Seeing his brother harmed sets Jeff into a rage, and he unleashes it unfettered upon the bullies. Jeff has trained as a boxer, and this training is more than enough to overcome the three boys. The power rushes through him, and he steps forward to continue the assault on the clearly defeated opponents, but his brother steps into his path. Jeff is reluctant to leave off until Lou points out the store attendant, calling the police, and they get out of there. They consider the consequences briefly, mostly the idea that they'll likely be bumping into these kids again at school, given the size of Mandeville. What they don't count on, however, is getting home and finding the cops waiting for them. The boys try to defend themselves, but quickly it becomes apparent that these cops are not interested in hearing their side of the story, claiming witnesses saw them start the fight at the video store, and if their bikes weren't chained up, then Randy and his posse were well within their rights to think they could ride them. To make it worse, despite the boys' pleas and protests, their parents are not interested in hearing their story either. Jeff insists that should they see the gang again, they just walk away. The next morning at breakfast, their father barks at them to sit down the moment they come down. Apparently, he works at the local law firm, the one Randy's father owns. He forcefully reprimands the boys for not considering how this might affect him when he started a fight over their bikes. Jeff tries to defend himself, but once again his parents are not remotely interested in hearing what he has to say for himself. The parents decide they're sending Lou to their Aunt Macy's for the rest of summer vacation, leaving Jeff alone in Mandeville. As Lou is shuttled off to their aunt's, Jeff reflects on his anger, the euphoric joy he gets from his rage, how well that feeling mixes with violence, like what he did to Randy and pals the day prior. A week passes, and Jeff's mother cuts him a deal. If he goes to Randy's and makes friends, they'll let Lou come back to Mandeville. Jeff hates the idea, but the interminable boredom of being stuck in this tiny little town alone wins out, and he reluctantly agrees. As they pull up to Hayden's house, Randy's family, Jeff swallows his pride. He even manages to be cool when he walks into Randy's room. The thing is, as the two start to reluctantly chat it out, they start to realize that they actually have a surprising amount in common. Their parents, for example, both desiring status and being willing to fake whatever they need to get it. In fact, Randy hates being the son of the most powerful man in town, and he hates the whole town because of the fact that everyone in the town treats him like royalty because of his father. Jeff talks about his dad enrolling him in a boxing class just to impress some co-workers. Randy apologizes for messing with their their bikes, blaming the insufferable dullness of Mandeville. And it turns out Randy doesn't even like his lackeys, Keith and Troy. They only hang around him because of his status in town. Then they hear their parents' car start up in the driveway. As it drives off, Randy points out that his mum has likely just convinced Jeffs into going shopping. Nothing to worry about. But he does have something he wants to show Jeff. He takes Jeff down into the garage. Standing in the small, closed-in garage, the late summer heat lingering about, Jeff began to feel a bit uneasy. Despite the fact that he and Randy seemed to bond over the last few hours, Jeff couldn't ignore a sense that things were different now, that the adults were gone. "What did you want to show me?" Jeff asked. "Hold on. Let me get it," Randy replied, moving the magazines out to reveal a small, red box. Jeff watched as Randy removed the box and opened it. "Check it out. My dad's flare gun," Randy announced, and waved the red tubular gun about. As Jeff's anxiety reaches a fever pitch, he realizes two familiar figures are standing in the doorway. Randy explains the situation, let Troy and Keith get some payback and walk home, and after that, they don't have to ever speak to each other again. The alternative, well, that's why they've got the flare gun. Jeff begins to feel it again, the euphoria of violence. Banning uses an extended metaphor, describing the feeling as syrup, a syrup for rage, and when it mixes with violence, it becomes intoxicating, a whirlpool of pleasure to pull Jeff down. Jeff lunges for Randy and strikes him twice in the face before anyone in the room has any chance to react. Randy is on the floor. The shock makes Troy and Keith hesitate too long, as Jeff turns on Troy and rapidly brings him down as well, and in a moment he pins Keith to the wall, and as he tries fruitlessly to escape, he delivers blow after blow to his stomach until he lets him fall, gasping, to the ground. Jeff gloats over the defeated group, and then they hear the rumble of a car engine pulling back into the driveway. Randy panics and explains that if he's found messing with his dad's flare gun, it's gonna be bad for him. As he fumbles for the gun, attempting to unload it and return it to its case, his fingers slick with sweat. Slip. Jeff takes a flaming round to the side of his face. In a split second, Jeff falls into a writhing abyss of agony, the rage, his only companion. And that's the last thing he feels before consciousness finds him again in a hospital room. As Jeff lies there, unable to move from the drugs, but able to listen, he overhears the doctor talking to his parents. He explains that the damage is severe, but not as bad as it could have been. His eye still requires examination to figure out whether it can be saved, but with luck and good response to treatment, he could be home in as little as a few days. The concerning matter is not the extent of the damage, but Jeff's mother's reaction. She asks not about his health, or whether his eye will recover. The only thing she seems exceptionally worried about is Jeff's appearance. As the doctor tries to tell her that she shouldn't be concerned about this right now, she should be focused on the fact that her son will live and recover to health, Jeff's mother's anguish only grows. The doctor leaves, and his parents are left alone. Jeff's mother begins to fear for what this might mean for the future. They've yet to witness the full extent of Jeff's disfigurement below the bandages, but she fears he'll be a social pariah. But what if other families are afraid to let him near their kids? What if they have to homeschool him? And I think Jeff's mother's concerns are quite valid. Permanent disfigurement is not well, at least he's okay. Like, that could really impact his quality of life drastically. Honestly, I think it might be easier to live without the sight in one eye than while looking like Harvey fucking Dent. The intent is to get across that Jeff's mother, Sheila Woods, is thinking about herself while he's lying there, lucky to be alive. But the thing is, she never explicitly says something like, "Oh, what will the girls at the book club think of me?" She could well be genuinely concerned about how her son is going to lead a life with heavy disfigurement. Like, yeah, maybe you should homeschool him, because that kid could get bullied into the ground. It's very possible that it'll be very difficult for him to make friends, to lead a normal life. Now, it's possible that the author, our boy Banning, explicitly omitted her saying anything specifically self-centered so that it's ambiguous. Perhaps Jeff is misinterpreting her intentions, but the point here is that his parents are neglectful and that they don't care for his well-being nearly as much as for their own. The point is that Jeff the Killer is a culmination of long-term lack of love and that all the other things pile on top, which doesn't work if this is the one and only time that they're neglectful. This is clearly supposed to be the latest swirl in a pattern. Just have her be unmistakably clear about not caring about him. It's Jeff the Killer. Subtlety is not part of the assignment or something this concept can accommodate. Sorry, it might seem weird that I'm getting this impassioned when I laughed off the many flaws in the other incantations up till now. Other incarnations, when I laughed off the many flaws in the other incarnations up until now, but that's because those are unsalvageable garbage. If the original story didn't have a cowboy hat wearing Jeff be held at gunpoint by 3 skateboarding bullies because it's too far-fetched, it wouldn't fix the story. It would make it way less entertaining. This story, by comparison, is pretty good. I like it. The flaws are a shame. Anyway, Jeff's parents then move on with their conversation, expressing their exasperation with the fact that Jeff would go messing about with a flare gun and managing to shoot himself with it, even with all those other boys trying to convince him to stop. It's a little heavy-handed in exposition for them to have this conversation in this depth at this moment, but remember that Banning did only have 10,000 words to work with, and the point being made here, having his parents still not believe Jeff and co might be the inciting factor here. That seems pretty blood-boiling. I can see why you'd go on an untamed killing spree after that. A few days pass, and as Jeff lies in a hospital bed, rage, hate, and morphine filling his brain, until the day comes. Time to come home. But first, to remove the bandages, he asked to see himself first, before his family are present to see. Once the bandages are off, she handed him a small hand mirror. "Would you like me to step out of the room?" she asked. Jeff ignored her and looked at himself, taking stock of the damage. Sure enough, his face was a mess. The entire left side, at least the flare, struck him travelling upwards and burned a scar into his left cheek that extended to his eye. At first glance, it almost looked like he was smiling on that side. The scar was still bright red, the burn tissue spread out on either side. Once it arrived at his eye, the news did not get any better. His eye was white, just a lifeless bulb plugged into his face. He closed his right eye and found that he could see nothing through his left eye at all. That way around. The scar continued up the left side of his head, but the damage was left severe here. The hair on the left side of his head was burned off, leaving only a few strands to stick out here and there. The drive home is done in uncomfortable silence. Even Lou, excited to have his brother back, can't find anything to say. At home that evening, Jeff can't stop studying his face under the bandages. Lou suggests doing something special to welcome him home, but his mother tells him just to go to sleep. As Lou tries to reconnect with his brother since the accident, Jeff gives him little acknowledgement, only taking the time to curtly explain that there's something wrong here, which may refer, perhaps, to their home, or maybe even the entire town. This theme of corruption is entrenched deep within this retelling. The corruption not only of Jeff from outside sources, but the town itself and everyone in it. Jeff is just the one to turn his rage to taking control of it all. One day, you'll see it too. This is what happens, though. This is what happens when it all falls down, Jeff said, still peeking behind his bandages. Lou knocks on the parents' door, hoping to bring Jeff's disconcerting behavior to their attention, but from behind the closed door of their bedroom, they dismiss him. Lou gives up and heads to bed. And that night is the last of Sheila and Matt Wood's life. As they stir in the darkness of their room, they can just make out a figure towering above them. Jeff raises the knife and plunges it into his father once, twice, 3, 4 times, until finally he stops breathing as his mother cowers. He asks her why did she believe Randy over him when she must have known he started it? When she saw Lou's busted lip? When she saw Jeff lying in a hospital bed? Why wouldn't she do something when she must have known? Mom, I think you should take your own advice. You know, what you told Lou when you got home tonight. He wanted to do something nice to welcome me home. Do you remember what you told us to do instead? Jeff asked, as he now crawled over, cornering his mother in the bed. What did I say? She asked, the question coming out barely a whisper. And thus, Jeff's tried and true catchphrase is reborn. It's quite forced. Banning is trying his best to give it emotional weight and a satisfying callback, but the truth of truth is, go to sleep is a really garbage catchphrase. Like, what does it mean? What is it supposed to say about Jeff that this is his catchphrase? It reminds me of a pissed off teacher on an overnight school trip. I've actually got some rejected other catchphrases that were originally considered.
For real, shut the up and sleep. Stop with me, please. And sleep. It's been 38 minutes already. Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Go to sleep. Oh, shit. God damn it, you gotta be kidding. Come on. Go the fuck back to sleep.
I think because of this innate suckery present in Jeff's catchphrase, it is almost impossible to make it not forced and weird in this story. Go to sleep would be a far better catchphrase for Freddy Krueger than Jeff the Killer, and these stories would only be improved if Jeff called everyone a bitch before he killed them. I'm just saying, if we ever rewrite the story again. After he's finished with his mother, Jeff heads to Lou's room, but in a very welcome change to the source material, Jeff is not insinuated to be killing his brother. He sits on the side of his bed and whispers to a half-awake Lou. You're free now, Lou, he spoke softly. What are you talking about? Lou mumbled, still half asleep. You'll see in the morning. I just wanted to let you know. I love you. You've been my best friend. Remember that. Okay. Thanks. I love you too. Let me go right to sleep. Lou replied, already dozing off again. Jeff smiled and stood up. As he left the room, he looked back at his sleeping brother. One last time before he vanished into the night. Banning had weathered criticism, even before he officially won and released the story as we visited, but the worst was still yet to come. Do you think the fans of the original story had their arms opened wide for their new chosen champion? Did they No. Banning received a lot of criticism for his take, something evident from a post nearly 2 years later in which he states, you may remember that my story, Jeff the Killer 2015, won and is currently featured on that site. Some people love it, most people hate it. What's my take? I think Banning does a very admirable job of trying to polish this thing. Every real problem is addressed, the characters are fleshed out beautifully, and there are actual themes blended in, something that might provoke a real emotion. This is pretty much the best possible telling of Jeff the Killer. However, even the greatest craftsman will struggle to work with poor tools, and Jeff the Killer is one of the rustiest hatchets I've ever seen. You can polish it all you like, but it's never going to shine. Well, discourse was rife around this, as the harsh sands of time did their best to whittle Banning down. They failed. Banning would return 2 years later, not happy with just having replaced the original story. Banning K announced he was writing a sequel to his telling of Jeff the Killer, to be released in August of 2017. He started this thing, and now it was time to dance on its grave. So, if the piece he did to replace the original story was so unaccepted by fans, what does that mean for the follow-ups? I think that Jeff the Killer rewrite Banning Kellum did was not, in my opinion, able to break free and become a masterpiece that stands on its own. What happens when this guy goes freewheeling without those guidelines? Because remember, there was no official follow-up to Jeff the Killer. Banning wasn't planning to remake Jane or Nina or Jeff vs. Slender. He was making his own fresh story within the JTK EU. Eyebrows raised, optimism uncertain, future teetering, and then... Banning followed up his story Scars of Corruption in August of 2017 on spinpasta.com. Spinpasta is, in essence, a more casual creepypasta.com. Banning uploaded there to avoid further wrath of the community. The story starts with a small author's note that gives a special thanks to Kevin Tierney for their adaptation of Jane the Killer, which inspired this story. More required reading. Give me a minute. Alright, I'm not going to linger on it long, because I want to talk about Banning's follow-up stories. That's the point of this section. It's also a lot more relevant later in this tale, so for now, just know that Tiani's story is a mixed bag and is really worth dissecting in a minute, because it sits in that zone of having some great ideas and also some unignorable flaws. So, Scars of Corruption. This is the first of, to date, 5 follow-up stories written by Banning, and now that we've got these follow-up stories, I see Scars as a precursor, laying out all the threads that will each be picked up and studied in more detail with each entry to come. So what I'm going to do here, to make this a bit more interesting for me to put together, and hopefully a little more digestible for you, is to split this section up into the characters and follow their stories from beginning to end, or, at the very least, beginning to where they are presently. And hopefully this script won't be another 10,000 words, but hey, we'll see. That aged poorly. Hi, hello, hi, it's me, back again. I know I was just here, but to me it feels like I'm back from somewhere. This is my last day of shooting. Today I'm hoping to put this out. I'm just interjecting to throw in a little bit of information that I realised I didn't put in particularly. I'm going to quickly just let you know about the actual story that's written. My camera's running really low on battery, so I had to make this quick. So, in Banning's stories, there are the 6 follow-up stories, which go Scars of Corruption, which is about Lyman and Bradshaw. Then there's Jane, and then he released Jane. That's a story just about Jane and Drake, Arkansas. Then he released... that was called... Disturbingly Cruel. Then was Disturbingly Cruel. Then we have Lou, and then you follow that with Shades of Madness, which sounds like a Lovecraft story, but I believe that is correct. Then Randy, and that's it. That's all of them. I just wanted to explain the order of stories because I never actually explain it, and I sort of mention them throughout this thing. And I need you to understand that there are a specific story about Jane, a specific story about Lou, a specific story about Randy within the canon. They have their own storyline written and just sort of condensed into one clear story. So that's how that works. All right, I'm back. Camera died, but I'm returning. I also just wanted to let you know that you're going to notice that when I mentioned Drake, Arkansas, I wrote Walathi instead of wealthy. But I've already exported the whole video, and it would take me another hour and a half extra to fix that tiny mistake. And I just want to get it out today, and I've got other things I got to do, so I don't got time to fix it. So you're just going to have to roll with the fact that it says Walathi. Let's begin with Officer Bradshaw and Agent Lyman. Dalton Bradshaw is a haggard old detective for Mandeville PD, having transferred in 2016 after the whole Jeff the Killer debacle. Simon Lyman is an agent for the Louisiana State Department, unsolved cases specifically. Now, I'm talking about these two first because their story is one of the main threads in Scars, and also because, as the two characters entirely of Banning's creation, they offer the best example of what Banning is capable of, without the constraints of the original story to hold him back. After a housewife and her son are attacked in their home by Jeff the Killer 2 years after the 2015 incident, Lyman and Bradshaw are brought together to take on the case. Lyman is an expert on Jeff, pretty much the foremost expert, so the state has sent him to take a look-see at the situation. Bradshaw is the detective for the local PD in Mandeville who has been assigned the case. After the night Jeff end-lifed his parents, he went on to claim 4 more Vicks across a few weeks. First, a reporter for the New Orleans paper, then the corrupt Officer Williamson, who had visited his family after the incident at the video store, and finishing his spree with a double kill on Troy and Keith. Randy, however, managed to escape into witness protection. After the 6, Jeff went into hiding, and no one has seen or heard from him since. Until now, when he turns up in the home of a housewife and her son. This brings the detective and the state officer together as an unexpected partnership on their way to check out the body left at Jeff's crime scene. Lyman is probably the best character in this whole beta post-2015 universe, for me personally, anyway. The first thing we learn is his name, Simon Lyman, which is his legal name, but only because he changed it from Solomon Lyman the moment he turned 18, just because... funny. Lyman has this beautifully balanced rockstar hotshot persona while also being kind of a badass and exceptionally good at his job. He's young, dresses casually, and drops colloquialisms left and right. Upon introduction to Dalton Bradshaw, he's brushed off as some dumb, inexperienced kid getting his first taste of real detective work. However, throughout their time together, we witness Bradshaw grow to respect this kid. Bradshaw being this grizzled, lonely, classic noir detective, there's an implicit wall being put up around himself. As the two work together, you start to see it come down, bit by bit, and what's fabulous about it is the subtlety. There's no scene of Bradshaw saying, "Hey kid, I really shut people out after X event in my past, but I just want you to know that I really trust you," or some such. You can just feel it in the subtext. And the majesty of Lyman is that, despite him being this young hotshot, he's not a stereotypical loose cannon who doesn't play by the rules, but damn does he get the job done. Or as Sherlock Holmes, well, he seems entirely disconnected from the case emotionally, but he's just so damn good at figuring it out. No. He plays it entirely by the book. He knows the book inside and out. He's read the case and Lewar's autobiography backwards and forwards. He's almost always the one to find a strange way to emotionally connect with the people that they meet that Bradshaw can't, and it's clear that this kid got so far up the ranks so young because he works hard, studies, pays attention, and cares. He's the new school to Bradshaw's old school. Bradshaw comes straight out of classic detective noir, working as our point of view character. We're led through the world by his thoughts and feelings, the past detective who thinks he's seen it all, and perhaps he had until the wild unravelings of Mandeville. These days, Bradshaw is the type to want things open and shut, nice and easy, so we can go home and presumably smoke cigarettes in bed. Deep down, though, the little long-forgotten part of him still craves the thrill of a real case. So, the two turn up to the crime scene to inspect the body. Thing is, the body is Jeff's. Turns out he attacked the wrong housewife and she kicked his ass to death, unintentionally. Before they can arrive at the scene, Lyman is already doubting the validity, and a couple glances are all he needs to determine pretty conclusively that this is someone cosplaying Jeff and not the real thing. As the pair head out, they realise they've been followed from the scene of the crime by an ominous 4x4 with no visible plates. It pulls up beside them, chucks a package out onto the road before speeding off. Bradshaw hops right out to pick up the package, and Simon is the one who's nervous to check it out. "Are you sure? What if it's an explosive or some kind of chemical powder?" This is the simple functionality of the partnership between the two. Lyman is an ace, but he's still got those nerves, and he indeed lacks experience. Bradshaw, however, has years of experience. "Look, they want us to pick it up. They could have smashed my car into a cube with that monster truck of theirs, but instead, they went to a lot of effort to make sure they had our attention." Bradshaw's down-to-earth reasoning and the confidence that comes with 30 years on the job provides a perfect balance to what Lyman, despite all his book learning, lacks. Later on, the mortician confirms Lyman's suspicions. This is indeed not Jeffrey Woods. Bradshaw pops open the package that got thrown at them in the road and finds a CD inside, along with some picture of Lou and Randy and an address leading to the part of town that was abandoned and reclaimed by Jeff's cult. Okay, Jeff doesn't run the cult or anything. It's just a group of people who look up to what Jeff did in 2015. Their thinking is Jeff finally break free of all the bullshit and took control of the world around him. Sort of a Fight Club Tyler Durden type thing, except Durden is just an idea and not an active leader. Anyway, the little cult known as Jeff's Killers has been considered out of action for a long while now, and as the police pull up to the address and find a body nailed to the wall, it's clear something very sinister and very present is afoot. The police chief blows up at the pair for letting this get out of control when he made it very clear he wanted this thing kept quiet as possible. Lyman dunks the dude a new one, fabulously just tells him to go suck a dick and like it, because otherwise he can just call the state commissioner and they can see how a obstruction of justice charge suits the chief. Lyman's kind of a badass. Lyman moves on to excitedly show Bradshaw a YouTube video he came across uploaded by Jane Arkansas. That's right, Jane the Killer. This is not her first entrance into the story, and it's so far from her last that it'll be its own story thread to look at later. Jane seems to know a lot about the conspiracy, proclaiming how she's been investigating, and this goes far deeper than some disfigured kid. She even knows about the bodies left by the housewife, which hadn't been released to the public yet, so it's clear she really does have her information straight. This would be the next lead, but while they're considering heading out, they get word that the CD they got in the package has been decoded, so they head over to the lab to view the contents, along with most of the department, save for the recently castrated chief. The CD contains a video file, a voice speaking over footage of Jeff Woods, taken on a handheld camcorder of the days before his disfigurement, before he was Jeff the Killer, observing him from a distance. This is kind of weird. We haven't received an explanation yet as to who or why this footage was recorded, but assuming it was, as the video proclaims, because this whole thing was orchestrated from the very start, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? I can't imagine an explanation under which this doesn't play as borderline supernatural, which doesn't particularly fit this tale. And it's not just because I think this whole story has to be entirely grounded in raw, gritty reality. I'm happy for some slightly out of reality elements because it's things that we don't understand that provoke fear and dread. For example, the video goes on explaining this has been in motion since before anyone could have thought, and that the people behind it are far more powerful than a handful of cops are accounting for. And the video ends with a red screen, emblazoned with the words, "Kill one now." Dalton Bradshaw raised an eyebrow, his mind swirling with questions. He glanced towards Simon to voice his quandaries, and suddenly felt all the colour drained from his face. He drew in a breath to call out a warning. He felt his muscles tense as he prepared to lunge forward. However, everything happened far too quickly for any action to lend aid. One of the uniformed officers, a guy whose name Dalton wasn't even sure he knew, drew his pistol from its holster, and the officer aimed the gun directly behind Simon's head. Simon, whose attention had been locked entirely onto the video screen playing before them, never even realized what was happening directly behind him. Lyman's body drops to the floor. Barely a moment, the cop who shot him turns the weapon on himself. Yeah, that storyline where Bradshaw and Lyman become friends against all odds and bring each other out of their comfort zones and they're best friends at each other's weddings. Yeah, that never gets to happen. In the few days that they're partnered together, they start to respect each other, to share banter. You feel where it's supposed to go. That's why it's such a well-executed surprise. May he rest in peace. Bradshaw watches the chief's statement from the cold comfort of a dive bar. Newly off the force, the lifelong policeman is lost. At least the cute alt girl behind the bar offers to take him home, and that's where Scars of Corruption finishes. And where Disturbingly Cruel picks up. Bradshaw has been going home nearly every night with Sherry, the bartender girl from the end of the last story. They've started developing some kind of relationship. Definitely not a serious one, but they've learned to rely on one another. We find out Bradshaw lost his job on the force, it coming down to the butthurt and likely corrupt chief searching his car and finding the Adderall he used to stay up late working. Nothing every other cop isn't also doing, but Chief Hardy was looking for a reason to kick Bradshaw off the force, and he found it. Still, with Sherry's encouragement, Bradshaw chooses to continue working on the case as an independent citizen with Sherry as his sidekick. To do so, however, he has to tell her the story of what happened in the days when Bradshaw and Lyman were still working together. The day we didn't hear about. The day when they visited the mental hospital that the fake Jeff and the body they found nailed to the wall attended before their last day. They don't have a warrant, and they likely won't be granted one, so Bradshaw is hunting for a disgruntled orderly, some such that won't be too opposed to screwing over his employees a little bit. Bradshaw lays out the bait by mentioning in front of the receptionist and a couple of orderlies on break that he's looking for Dr. Sawyer, the man treating both the bodies when they were still animated. As they wait outside, a woman approaches them with information. This is what makes the duo work so great. The subversion of expectations is a tasty treat. The young casual Lyman knows how to work within the rules to a T, but it's the older guy, with all his experience, that's learned to work around the rules. Still, Lyman's got people skills, so he chats to the girl about My Little Pony for a while until she relaxes a little. It seems that Sawyer, the doctor working with the two patients in question, is very much the causal link. Apparently, the two were in Sawyer's special group, and after a few months in that, they started to get obsessed with Jeff, the killer. But there was another girl in the group, the scary one, and this young orderly directs them to the group home, where they can find her. And they never say her name at any point as they approach the fateful meeting. And at this point, if you're me, anyway, you start getting this little tingle, that little shiver up your spine that says, Banning, you wouldn't, you couldn't, no one in their right mind would ever. Oh, this girl, she's something else. Obsessed with Jeff the Killer, even before Sawyer's involvement. Binding up glass to feed cats, attacking social workers when they dare to suggest that Jeff isn't someone to idolize, even skewering one of the other girls in the group home with a knitting needle. As they head to the location, I settle into this giddy feeling I've got. The girls escaped the house and holed herself up in a shack somewhere in the woods, as apparently she has done repeatedly. The social worker for the group home takes them out there. And that's when we're introduced to 13-year-old Nina Hopkins. The absolute cast iron bollocks on Banning. No. Reading this thing is like watching an Avengers movie. Like, you know in Spider-Man No Way Home when they open the portal and you're like, wait, they're not gonna... And then it's Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. That's the feeling of reading these when you're as lost in the Jeff lore as I am. Like, when you catch a reference to a character you know in the comments and you're like, no way, they're not gonna introduce my favourite character, are they? And then you get to see Captain Weasel up there on the big screen. That's how this feels. The big screen debut of Nina the Killer. It might seem weird that I'm somehow blown away to see Jeff the Killer characters in a Jeff the Killer story, but that's only because I failed to properly communicate the vibe of Banning's universe to you. It's so grounded and high quality. Let me put it like this. I was going to save this for later to drop as some kind of reveal, but I think it substantiates my point too effectively to wait. Have you noticed what Jeff the Killer character hasn't appeared since Banning's first story? Jeff isn't in this story, ever again. He's gone out of the picture. Where is he? What's he doing? I don't know, but wherever he is, it's not in these chapters. The sequel stories are not about Jeff the Killer. They're about the town of Mandeville and the corruption that's running through it. It's dry as fuck, but in a very classy way, like a John Grisham thriller, I assume. I've never read one. Too busy reading dogshit creepypastas. Too busy reading The Ugly Barnacle.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Why don't you?
There are only 2 extended canon characters in the story from here on out, Nina and Jane Arkansas, so the lead up to Nina just sort of got my goose pimples pimpling. We're introduced to Nina, and Lyman tries to take the lead on making friends with her, as is his specialty. He chats with her about Jeff the Killer, and then she grabs his hand to show him something. That something is 3 dead cats nailed to the wall, and in a flash, she pulls a knife from behind her back, and just before she can skewer Lyman, Bradshaw shoulder barges her across the room. Bradshaw gives her the speech from the casino scene in Goodfellas.
In all fairness, I should explain to you exactly what it is that I do. Tomorrow morning, I'll get up nice and early, take a walk down over to the bank. If you don't have my money for me, I'll crack your fucking head wide open. And just about the time that I'm coming out of jail, hopefully, you'll be coming out of your coma. I'll split your fucking head open again, because I'm fucking stupid.
And to everyone's surprise, it's Bradshaw that manages to make a connection with the kid by threatening extreme violence. You're the coolest adult I've ever met. Bradshaw takes her to a restaurant and tries to get some information about Dr. Sawyer out of her. She tells him first off that Sawyer had some kind of mind control trick, the red, green, blue game, which obviously connects to the red screen that heralded Lyman's murder in the police station. She also says that there are far more people under this hypnosis than we know, all walking around out there in the world. The red, green, blue game didn't work on Nina, however, so Sawyer had no use for her and dumped her off. They get back in the car, Bradshaw a little disappointed he couldn't get more info, but they stay positive as they head out. That night, Bradshaw's apartment gets broken into and someone leaves him a creepy tape repeating "the red makes you hate" over and over. And from there we skim over the events that came after Lyman's death. We move back to the framing device, Bradshaw explaining the story to Sherry. They discuss the plan, how to track down some more clues, and then head to bed. And Bradshaw, this guy just cannot catch a break. He has some wacky dreams and finally awakes to hear a tape playing. The phrase, "the red makes you hate, the green makes you fake, and the blue makes you, you," cycles round and round. He searches the house and finds Sherry in the most ironic room in the house. The living room. And that might be an English thing. The lounge to international viewers. Here we call it the living room, so that was a funny joke. Laugh. Laugh. A few days pass after Sherry's death, and eventually Bradshaw is heading back to his apartment, and it's been broken into again. Boy, invested some home security, damn! Sitting in his lounge is Nina, watching Hell's Kitchen. She begs him to let her stay, sick of living in the group home, and if he does, she's got information about Sawyer to share. Bradshaw acquiesces, and this entry in the story ends. Until Shades of Madness picks it back up. I really hope this isn't exceptionally boring for you watching. That would be awkward, wouldn't it? I mean, Jeff the Killer has literally completely left now. We're real far down the rabbit hole. How many words am I at? 15,000? Yeah, that seems about right. We've got much longer to go. I am gonna run out of outfits. I'm not gonna run out of outfits. We open with a dream from Nina's point of view, the imagery clearly showing that she's at an emotional crossroads, whether to let the hate in and become a heartless monster like Jeff, or to take on Bradshaw's guidance and, well, not that. She's been staying with Bradshaw for the last week. This, of course, takes us into the tried and true direction of Bradshaw, the old, grumpy man who hates kids, learning to be a protector for Nina and them developing a father-daughter-like bond. It's a million miles from original, but I like the twist that she's a vibrant psychopath, being barely kept at bay. Add some spice to the affair. Much like Bradshaw and Lyman's relationship, it's not an original concept, but the characters involved are interesting enough to keep it feeling worthwhile. So, Bradshaw has been taking some sort of care of Nina, making sure she takes her pills and doesn't starve, while Nina has yet to fulfill her end of the bargain and spill the beans on Sawyer. Bradshaw has friends coming to visit, to help try and figure some things out for the case. One, Derek Reynolds, a journalist known for his TV show where he interviews and investigates around cults and murders. We'll talk more about him when we get to talking about Jane, but the guy's not afraid to help, even with the bodies piling up around Bradshaw and his investigation. Derek, in his investigation, has found spicy goss on Sawyer and his weird experiments. More stuff pointing towards the strange red, green, blue mind control stuff. This strikes an accord with Nina, and she finally pours the tea on what she knows. And what she knows is where to find Dr. Sawyer. The gang heads out for a look-see at the place and realize that their best move is to come back the next day with some backup to storm the place. Bradshaw calls in some favors to get some other officers to lend aid while skirting the law a little bit. And on the way there the next day, he tries to speak to Nina's parents who couldn't handle her and put her into psychiatric care in the first place. Okay, here I go on a tangent again. Let's quickly talk about the themes going on in this story. My god, look at me. I almost sound like a real intellectual. Oh, Miss Walpole, you gave me a C in English literature, but who got the last laugh, huh? Me, because I wrote an essay for fun, and also because you got done for all that child trafficking stuff. This video is dedicated to Liam Mensa, who I sat next to in Year 3 English class. Wherever you are, know we're thinking of you. Jesus Christ, can you tell I wrote this part of the script at 4:30 in the morning? Because I can. So, our three main themes are corruption, that one should be quite clear, the second is trauma, and the third is nature versus nurture, crappy parents, that stuff. There's more to add to this later, but for now we'll just stick with these three. Jeff Wood's snap. Okay, are you record? You are record. Let's do some tools. Yeah. Right, so yeah, I found this interview and it's kind of amazing. So we're just gonna talk about this for a minute because it cracked me the fuck up when I was sat at work on my break reading it. Let me go find it. What's it called? You guys see that? Damn it, I wasn't recording, so you didn't see the horse. Ah, fuck, I wasn't recording. I thought I was recording. You didn't see the horse go by. We had a whole horse-drawn carriage go by. It was very exciting. So, Saussure, the original creator of Jeff the Killer, was contacted by a Reddit user named Deleted somewhere about 4 years ago, and they asked him a bunch of questions. They had this whole questionnaire written out, and Saussure answered all the questions. And Saussure's canon is so entirely different. And it's all the more entertaining remembering that this was 4 years ago. So this would have been 2019. The original story was written in 2008. So Saussure is no doubt an adult now, and yet they still seem to really hold on to their original canon of Jeff the Killer, which at this point is just so irrelevant to anything. Like, what does it matter? You made this 2-minute video. I don't know. I'm not trying to downplay their creative strides, their creations. You know, be proud of what you've made, but also, like, at some point you have to accept, it's not really my story anymore. So I just find it very funny reading through this completely alternate original canon that he made, or they made. We don't actually know their gender. We don't really know anything about Saussure as a person. So I'll put it up somewhere on the screen. Creepypasta name, Jeff the Killer. That remains the same. That's all good. Real name, Jeffrey Jeff C. Hodak. So his original name was Jeffrey Hodak, not Jeff Woods. That is a new, a second. God, there's like 3 layers. There's like 3 canons at this point. It's madness. Jeff the Killer's full name is Jeffrey C. Hodak. He was born on September 22nd, 1982. And as of 2017, he is 35 years old, 2 years older than his brother Lou Roman Hodak. Lou Roman Hodak, so that his middle name, Lou's middle name is Roman, who is 33 years old. Presumably much like the Saussure themselves, I would imagine. Jeff has, and still has, dark brown hair and green eyes. Jeff was actually involved in a sulfuric acid incident. His burns did not involve flame. The event happened in his own house at the age of 21. He was not 13, and no bullies set him on fire. It's all in capitals. Every word starts with a capital. I didn't even notice that. Did they reply like that? Or is that something... No, that's what they wrote, because the title that they used doesn't have that. So that's how Saussure wrote it. Saussure wrote every word with a capital. The acid was from cleaning products that had split in his bathtub in the process of cleaning his bathroom, leading his face to get 3rd-degree burns. Do you get 3rd-degree burns from chemical burns? I don't think that's how it works, because the degrees... I mean, I guess the degrees are, like, how many layers of your dermis it's gone through, right? I guess that could apply, but I don't know if it does. I'll look into it and let you know. He does have a face... He does, in face, have a nose, presumably supposed to say in fact. It's described as slits for nostrils. So he's less of a Joker ripoff and more of a Voldemort ripoff in the original version. He also never burnt his eyelets with a lighter. His eyelets just became a bit red and irritated from the acid. I don't even know where the lighter thing came from. It's mentioned several times that he burned his eyelids off if you look in different places, but I don't know where that actually came from. I think that's just sort of a general lore, like no particular story. Jeff has never stabbed Lou, nor did Jeff kill or attempt to kill their parents. So he's just a guy, basically. Didn't do anything. He's just a dude. He's just a dude who was in an accident. Jeff has a close bond with his brother and would never hurt him. Jeff is asexual, meaning he has no interest in sex at all. Okay, cool. I mean, that's fair. Lou is still very close with Jeff. They live together, go golfing together, and tell each other everything. Lou is the only person who knows that Jeff kills. On the mic at stand-up night, am I right? It's just such a wholesome, normal dude who's slightly disfigured. He kills people sometimes. Jeff is 5'7", 5'10". He's an average weight, responsibly lean, and slightly muscular. He keeps himself fit by self-discipline, taking LSD and painkillers. He keeps himself fit by taking LSD. What a legend. The old Longshore Drift, dude. Jeff doesn't kill children and or avoids doing so. Why did he have that candy truck then? He has the candy van in your original video, Saussure. What's he doing with those children if he's not killing them? He feels that children have purity and can be good in life. Well, so he's not really that bad of a guy. His theme song is not Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by Marilyn Manson. Jeff's official theme is I Guess You're Right by the Posies. I suppose I haven't really mentioned it, but I've been playing it occasionally in the background at several points during this video. but Sweet Dreams Made of This by Marilyn Manson is generally used as Jeff's theme. It's made by a guy called Myuu, who I've used a lot of his music in this video as well. But Myuu is kind of the guy who made the popular version. It's a piano cover of Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, is often used as the musical accompaniment for Jeff the Killer. It's his theme song. Stop saying it makes you sound uncertain. It's very annoying. It's often used as his theme, but the guitar one sounds cool though, let's be honest. I'm not even going to leave that in. Let me just re-explain that, but in a better way. How's the M track doing? You going red? You all good? We're all good. Yeah, I should explain that his theme song, I've used it throughout several. His theme song I've used at several points throughout this video is "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These" by Marilyn Manson, and there's a very famous cover by famous in the circle cover by a man called Myuu, whose music I've also used throughout this. It's a piano cover. Myuu is a legend. He lets you use his stuff as long as you give him a little bit of credit. So thank you, Myuu. I have done so. Jeff's official catchphrase is... Are you ready? Because it's not... Remember, his normal catchphrase is "go to sleep." Jeff's official catchphrase in the Saussure canon is "it's joy, it's joy, it's joy." Which sounds like it sounds like it was written in Japanese and just didn't translate very well. But his first words before killing his first victim, his neighbor, was, "This kid needs to go to sleep." Oh, I've got a bit coming later that I don't want to spoil, so I'm not gonna go too much in on that. Jeff has his own personal demon that torments him called Angus. This is amazing. I'm so glad I found this. Is a really Scottish demon that torments him, apparently. His nose was severely damaged by the acid and only has slits for nostrils, barely noticeable with his ghostly face. You already said that, but cool. Jeff was hauling a gallon of acid in his bathroom to clean out his bathtub. He slipped on a bar of soap, in which he fell, and the acid splashed all over his face, damaging his face. The neighbour heard his cries for help and took him to the hospital. Lou was at work, but came over to the hospital as soon as he heard what happened to Jeff. Never again was Jeff the same. I would imagine things were different after that, yes. His current status is unknown at the time. I'm assuming that's like whether he's alive or dead, not relationship, because we know that he's not interested in sex. He's asexual, which I respect. We need more asexual representation in media. Height 5'7" to 5'10". I guess the acid must have burned him down a couple inches. Weight 141 pounds. That's very specific. His height, which, you know, wouldn't fluctuate, that's between 5'7" and 5'10", but his weight is 141 pounds, no matter what date or time it is. Noticeable features: heavily damaged face, long, sharp black nails on one hand. Yo, there's Marilyn Manson up in here. Damage from self-defense throughout his career. Allies: his brother Lou, the Roman Hodak. It's such an in-depth canon as well. That's what I love about it. There's so much. He's got so much. Like, he must have written a bunch of extra canon for this at some point, and just no one cares. Enemies: young bounty hunter, special SCU agents. I think they must have just made this up when they were asked the questions, and they were like, fuck it, I'm just gonna put some shit down. I just don't. It's so insane. He uses all sorts of... Oh, this is my favorite. This is where I stopped when I was reading it. He uses all sorts of weapons he can get his hands on, from his bare hands all the way up to a Uzi. He used to use a kitchen knife for some of his early kills. He most recently is equipped with a hunting knife with a sheath and a utility belt with assorted tools. Throwing darts, flares, chloroform, explosives, flashlights, surgeon mask, and he occasionally wears... Oh, a surgeon mask that he occasionally wears to hide part of his face, usually removed or damaged during the final Survivor segment, where Jeff is bested by final Survivor and injured, thus retreating to kill another day. So Jeff is like in Saussure's headcanon, Jeff is basically like a Freddy Krueger type who keeps getting defeated by the final girl at the end, and then having to come back for the sequel. And there's just like 4 or 5 like. I love it so much. Family, Lou, Roman, Hodek. Oh my god, he repeats himself so much as well. Weapon of choice, kitchen knife. I thought you said it was a Uzi. Well, I guess you said he uses a Uzi, all the way up to a Uzi. Type of killer, sociopathic serial killer. Powers, skills, hand-to-hand combat. Enhanced senses. Yes. Very specific. Thank you, Cecile. Athleticism, slightly above average. Can outrun most people and climb really quickly. Inhuman durability. Not exactly inhuman, but he's pretty durable. Any attacks? Is he durable enough to kill his own parents? What is it? No, is he? What's the phrase? Is he durable? Yeah. What was it? What was the fucking wiki entry? Is he durable enough that he can't be killed by his children? Ah, fuck it. Oh. Inhuman durability, not exactly inhuman, but he's pretty durable. Any attacks that would cripple an average adult male would cause Jeff to be stunned for a few seconds before shaking it off and going in for the kill. Okay, alright. He has a high pain tolerance, able to survive 3 shots in the abdominal, very specific, and still stand but get fatigued with a handgun. And he can heal a bit quicker than average people. For example, a person had a basic scratch, it takes 5 days for it to heal. Now with Jeff's basic scratch, the same type previously stated would heal almost completely overnight. He can take a good amount of punishment before he's neutralized. So he's like slow Wolverine. Inhuman stamina, his stamina is slightly below average. He's able to stay on someone's trail for about 5 minutes before he gets winded and takes a break. His stamina does, however, replenish rather quickly. What he lacks in stamina, he makes up for in speed. He's like a horse. Great stealth. His stealth ability is superb. Barely ever caught sneaking into his potential victim's house, and even hiding himself very quickly when someone investigates the area he was in. His stealth is so excellent to the point that people who either escaped Jeff or who was spared by him believes that he has the ability to teleport. So now he's the thing from Among Us. That's not funny, I'm going to cut that out. High speed. Another attribute that he's superb at. His speed is very impressive, able to keep up with a speeding car for about 9 seconds before resting. Wow! It started off sounding impressive and then became really unimpressive. How fast is the car speeding? If he could go like 120 miles an hour for 9 seconds, I mean, that's a solid sprint. It's like Usain Bolt, but then Usain hits the finish line and is like, I need to sit down, guys. I need to have a tea. Major skills. The skill improves over the course of Jeff's career. The first year of killing people, he would make rookie mistakes and ending up getting wounded. Early in his career, Jeff was more aggressive, arrogant, reckless, and sloppy with his kills, resulting in his victims more brutal demise due to him not being Jesus Christ, that's a long sentence. Precise and professional as he would soon be later in his career, and as well skilled enough not to make rookie errors and overcome more people who face him. As it now became later Jeff's career, he became more disciplined, more skilled with the art of murder, as well as knowing the human body to attack the weak spots for cleaner and more professional kills, only every once and a while being brutal just for the hell of it. His cocky and sardonic personality during his early career have been changed with more of a stoic and determined demeanor. His occasional sardonic quips showing that despite improving his combat skills, he'd never lose in morbid satirical personality, but only keeping them more subtle than before, and his increased strength. What the fuck does any of that mean? What the hell did you just say, Sasua? I understood none of that. Psychopathy. Very unhinged. He sees humanity as a blight and believes he's doing the right thing. He has a shred of humanity inside him due to Lou's love and support. Jeff's ultimate goal is to get rid of the wicked and live with his brother on an island somewhere away from the corrupted society he despises. Without Jeff's brother to help him, Jeff may have died much sooner. Jeff is also haunted by a personal demon of his nicknamed Angus Grimville, a horrifying and sinister entity that feeds off of misery. Jeff is a tortured soul doing a torturer's job. Wow, okay, that last line was weirdly poetic, considering the rest of this is... he also used the word sardonic at one point, despite the fact that they don't seem to understand basic sentence structure beyond that. I have no understanding of who Saussure is as a person. It makes no sense to me who you could be. Can you tell me, I'm reading the comments now, can you tell me or send some link when he could keep up with a speeding car? What do you mean? He's not a real... This was 11 months ago someone posted that. What do you mean? He's not a real guy. What do you want? A link to what? His biography should be a joke. You do know that picture was photoshopped by trolls. It's not true. Oh, madness. Saussure, thank you so much for that. I appreciate your canon so much. It might be better than the real canon. I wish that there was more of Saussure's canon in existence. Like, I want full in-depth stories written. I want to see Saussure's follow-up stories. I want to, you know what, if I can find any of those, someone send me a link to those. I haven't found any. I don't think there are any. If someone can find a link to Saussure's follow-up stories, if he's ever made any, please send me that. I will read the fuck out of those on camera. I will go in depth on all that shit so deep. Please send me that if you can find it. Anyway, let's get back to the scripted part where I'm not rambling incoherently. Why are you so sad? I love you, and I have to spray you down all the time. You're always sad. Why are you always sad? I know that it's not the bathroom that you're in anymore. I know you liked it in the bathroom because it was so steamy all the time. Same with you, except you were always a dick. You've just been spent a year slowly dying on me, and I don't know what I can do for you. I don't know what you need from me. You're dead now. It's too late to do anything now, but... I think you're just a lemon tree in the UK. Like, this is just not your vibe. Oh well, anyway. I even thought of a title you might like. Jeffrey Woods, brother, killer, friend. Wait, no, brother, friend, killer. I hope that killer part doesn't seem too harsh. You can name it whatever you want, of course. I just wanted to give you a real contribution while we still have time. That's going to be the title then. No question about it. I love it. Additional context, that indeed ends up being the title of his book. Viviana, I know we're close friends, and... Lou stopped mid-sentence. He wanted to express that he'd grown a bit closer to her than just good friends, but he was also worried that he could ruin what was the first real friend he'd made since Jeff vanished. Lou, she replied, her voice dropping to a soft tone, you survived Mandeville. You walked out of your house alive. You're Lou Woods, future best-selling author and all-around amazing person. If you want to kiss me, do it. I like you too. I have for some time. If I'd known that we were going to move soon, I would have told you much earlier. And the 15-year-old orphan boy and the goth girl suck tongues. The two children's mouth-mashing is interrupted when they notice a figure watching them. They start walking home, but with each moment, figure after figure comes popping out of the darkness, and suddenly they're surrounded by cloaked strangers. Did you like seeing their dead bodies? The man asked. Did seeing them laying there, covered in blood, make you happy? Look, I didn't have anything to do with that. I tried to warn them, Lou stammered. They wouldn't listen. Too late. You must pay. It's time. Go to another city. Lou steps in front of the vehicle just as high beams light the street and the figures disappear into the shadows. Casper leaps from the vehicle and grabs one of the cockroaches, slamming him into the side of the car. Turns out, they're from the local church group, looking to strike some fear into Viv and her family so they might expedite their exit to New Orleans. And nothing to do with Lou or Jeff. Regardless, the event has brought forth Lou's trauma in an unexpected way. Their accusations hit him somewhere he didn't know he could be hit. In the guilt. Could he have done more? Could he have saved his parents by just knocking on the door one more time? his feelings remain swirling within him, even as the police sirens approach. The guy they caught is just an 18-year-old kid, a member of the East Austin Holy Book Church, a church known for its boycotts and protests. Their protests against Casper's exhibition are what's causing him to get kicked out of his home. Apparently, stunts like the one this night are not unheard of from the church, and it's been difficult to nail them to the minister of the church, Buddy Carter, until now. This kid they've caught, however, is willing to spill the beans, just absolutely wreck the place with those beans. So, with some luck, it might be possible to nab the guy in charge. Not that this changes Casper's plans to leave town any. If anything, it means he's got to kick it up a gear. Knowing the church will be even more motivated to harass him and his family, Casper makes some calls and they'll be leaving the town the next night. As Viv starts to cry, Casper asks to speak to Lou in the kitchen. He offers Lou the opportunity to come live with them, back to New Orleans. It would let him see his old friends. The Alexander's apartment is going to be only a short walk from where Lou grew up, and he heard how Lou gushed about his hometown. Lou takes Casper's business card so he can call if he wants to take it up, but for whatever reason, Lou feels deep in his heart of hearts that it's not the time for him to move back home. Viv and Lou go outside, for obvious reasons, not going far from the house this time. They once again try to put their feelings into words. Lou's new strange feeling of guilt is festering, and he explains it to Viv best he can. Of course. Yeah, but to be truthful, I never really considered that I could have done so much more than I did. A minute longer of banging on the door and my parents might still be alive. Jeff could have gotten help. A minute more of knocking and who knows? Maybe 6 people wouldn't have had to die. I don't know, Lou. Sometimes I write these little formulas. Yeah, maybe. Just dumb pseudo-goth crap, like everyone would expect from me. One night I was thinking about the time I got... Promise not to laugh, Lou. Promise? One morning I got hit with a garbage can. The next few seconds were some of the most mentally grueling of Lou's life, as he fought not to fall from the chair in a fit of laughter. He fought hard, though, and after a few seconds that felt like hours went by, his urges to laugh passed. How exactly? It was a Saturday morning. A few years ago, there was this stupid bagel shop about a mile from our house. It opened its door at 4 a.m. and usually had a line outside the door well before. See, they sold something called a knucklehead. It was sort of a bear claw looking pastry, and people raved about them. They only made a few dozen every morning, though, and once they ran out, that was it. So one night, I decided to set my alarm for 3 a.m. and just pedal down there and wait. I wanted a damn knucklehead, Lou, and I was sick of these early bird donut lovers snatching them all up. So my alarm goes off at 3 a.m. and I hit snooze. It goes off 5 minutes later, and I get up, I get dressed, and start riding my bike to the bakery. As I'm biking, a garbage truck is up ahead, doing the normal routine. I get on the sidewalk in order to be a safe distance, and just as I pass the rear of the truck, the trash collector must have dumped the can. So, you know how they do. Dump the can, throw the can, and drive to the next house? Well, they changed it up for me. It was dump the can, throw the can into Viviana, and Viviana goes to the hospital. I got 2 cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder. Damn. Rough morning, but what does that have to do with your little formula or whatever? Well, I started thinking, like, what if I hadn't hit snooze? Or what if I'd hit snooze a second time? Every impulse in my body was telling me to. I'll tell you, the garbage truck would have been somewhere else. When I got to that point in the sidewalk, the trash can that ensured I'd never throw the discus in the Olympics would have still been full of trash, had I skipped the snooze, or would have already been empty when I hit it again. But then I started realizing that I could trace it back even further. My alarm went off for the first time. I almost turned it off. I mean, it's a Saturday morning. Some pastry really worth torturing myself into clothes? Had I not gone out that morning, I too could be in a totally different place right now. Or my bike. I had to pump up the tires the night before. Something I could have done sooner, but my dad broke our air pump. It just so happened that someone threw one away a couple days before in the dumpster behind my dad's gallery. He'd noticed it there, and when he saw that it still functioned, he brought it home. But my dad only went out to the dumpster to run the trash because his clerk called in sick that day. So had my dad not brought the pump home, I wouldn't have been able to fill my tires, and that would also have changed everything. Anyway, I just kept going with it, driving back deeper and deeper until finally I googled the history of the little bagel shop, and it turns out the original owners only met because one of them bent down to pick up a nickel from the sidewalk, and before doing so, he asked someone to please hold his briefcase. A helpful guy that just happened to be an investor looking for ideas happened to be there and offered to hold the case. They got to talking, and eventually founded that bagel shop. So I was this... Imagine if whoever dropped that nickel, like back in 1945, had noticed it and picked it up. Or what if the other bagel guy hadn't had time to hold the briefcase? Or what if the guy just didn't notice the nickel? No matter what, it likely would have meant no bagel shop, and thus no place for me to wake myself up at 3 a.m. for. Think about it, Lou. I had to wrap my ribs like a mummy and never pick up anything heavy and miss a ton of school, all because back in 1945, some guy dropped a nickel on the ground. Whoa. That's deep, Liv. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, Lou, but what I'm saying is that some things that we think just happen because of whatever may already be set into motion. Anyway, if you'd managed to get your parents to come to the door, maybe they would have gone in and checked on Jeff. Maybe they would have sent him back to the hospital. Maybe he would have just refused to tell them anything, and they would have gone right back to their rooms thinking he was just fine. That's how blame works, Lou. You go back to one point in time when you had some kind of control and you put yourself in this position of godhood, but all of this stuff happens because of things that have already happened. If Randy's dad had locked up the flare gun, none of this may have happened. If Randy's mom had been on birth control, maybe none of this would have happened. If your dad hadn't got offered the promotion and the job in Mandeville, maybe you could trace it back to Randy's great-great-great-grandparents meeting for the first time if you want. The present adds up. No matter what, Lou. It always will. Lou Woods stared at the young woman sitting next to him. In that moment, he decided he loved her. I know that was a ridiculously long excerpt, but fucking come on, how brilliant is that little monologue? That's the kind of writing that makes digging through piles of brain rot to reach the diamonds in the rough worth it. So much of Viv's character comes through, not just in the events of the story, but even the way she tells it. Who hasn't been to that place of dwelling on what you could have done differently if you had known how it was going to go? And ending, as every truly good monologue, with a short mantra to remind yourself of the lesson. The present adds up, no matter what. It always will. Then they taste each other's tonsils again for a bit before the Uber turns up, and Lou has to say goodbye, but it's only goodbye till the next day, as Lou's going to come down and see the family off. What's rough about reading this story is knowing that as you start to love these characters, you have to know in the back of your head that it doesn't end the way you want it to. We know Lou at 18 isn't in New Orleans, with the support of Viv and her family. He's not happy and healthy and well-adjusted. You can't help wondering what might happen if Lou decides to take up Casper's office to go live with them. Maybe he'd find a way to get free of it, all the baggage. Maybe he'd write the book with Viv's help and let go of the past. Maybe there's a world where he gets up early in the morning and goes to pick up bagels. And they laugh and cry through ups and downs and birthdays and Christmases. But that's not how the story goes. He doesn't arrive at their house the next morning and realize how stupid he is for turning down Casper's offer, because they're already gone when he gets there. Lou didn't put his phone on charge when he got back, and it died somewhere in the night before he could wake him. I genuinely gasped at this moment and then missed my bloody bus stop, and then I did it again, writing this section of the script. Lou trying to find any desperate way to make it to Viv's as fast as he can, hoping he can maybe catch them in time, is tense and anxious. Why can't these kids just be happy? Damn it! Why can't just one person in this tale end up happy? As he finally makes it to Viv's house, he manages to get a phone call through to her, and just as he gets close enough to see the family are still in the house. Except their car's gone. And Viv's already at the state line, and she's been receiving pictures from the house from some unknown intruder. Pictures of Lou standing outside. A swift crack to the back of the head, and Lou's world goes black. Lou awakes in a small dimly lit room with none other than Reverend Buddy Carter. Carter manages to make Lou beg for his life for a spell, but after enough abuse, Lou changes the narrative and starts berating Carter, which is genuinely quite entertaining. Thing is, this turn towards defiance, Lou's refusal to be a victim, is just what Carter was waiting for. See, Carter has a deal to strike with Lou. He'll offer Lou an abundance of funds and uses connections to get Lou's book published, and all Lou has to do is tell the police that are quickly descending upon the church that Lou came here of his own volition. But Carter just talked nicely with him. With that kind of money and a successful book, Lou could be in control of his story, no longer the victim in the story, but the centre of it. As the Red and Blues pull up to a cheap strip mall church, Carter pressures Lou to make his decision. Well, Mr. Woods, the time to decide has arrived. Will you be a victim yet again, or are you ready to conquer your life and live the way you desire, instead of the way the predators of this sick world demand? Cut to 6 months later. Lou's living in New York, a wealthy, legal adult thanks to Carter's help getting him emancipated from his aunt and uncle. His book is on shelves across the nation. Wealth beyond what Lou had ever envisioned for himself lines his pockets. In exchange, Lou provides a witness statement that disentangles Carter from the crimes committed by members of his church. So Lou's finally free of the role of victim, has taken control of his own life. Right? Here's my take. In his attempt to escape the shadow of his brother, he succeeded only in lodging himself deeper within it. All across the nation, his name is known. Lou Woods, brother of Jeff the Killer. Sure, now it's his story, the story of a boy who survived the neglect that sent Jeff insane, who lived through the night his brother enacted his violence, the one who made it past the trauma of his parents' murders. But that's who he is now. And 2 years later, he's still trying to live off that reputation, tour the interview circuit as the boy who witnessed Jeff the Killer. New Orleans with Viv would have been a chance to be someone else. Not Lou Woods, Jeff the Killer's brother, but Lou Woods, whoever the hell he wants to be. That's why Lou is sat in this apartment listening to old interview tapes and reliving his past. He's forever stuck in it. He's spread his name across the state as brother of his brother. And that's all he'll ever be. He tried several times to reconnect with Viviana. He wanted to offer her money. He wanted to have her move to New York with him. However, after he'd agreed to flip his testimony to support Carter, she would have nothing to do with him ever again. He received only one reply in his many attempts to contact her. Email from Viviana Alexander to Lou Woods. Lou, you are the worst kind of human. A coward who would throw his friends away to line his pockets. I thought there was so much more to you. I am grateful that you exposed yourself early, though. At least I didn't have to waste any real time on you. I'll never be able to recover the very real emotions I wasted on you, though. But I can live with that. So long as I never see you again. Do not contact me anymore. I have blocked you on all media except for this email account, which I will delete once I send you this. V. Alexander. Lou remembered wanting to cry that day. Afterwards, though, as the months rolled on and his fame grew, he found that he cared less and less about her opinion. He didn't credit her in his book, and eventually couldn't understand why I ever felt sorry for her at all. She could have come along with him on this journey, but perhaps he wasn't her type after all. She seemed to be into victims, and that wasn't him at all. What a fucking good line, holy crap! In the present, Jess, Lou's new girlfriend, arrives home and delivers him the exciting idea she's had, a sit-down interview with Jane Arkansas, back in Mandeville for the first time since it happened. Lou agrees, and plans go into motion. And that's the story of Lou, a man so obsessed with escaping his role in his brother's story, he forgot he could have a story of his own. Okay, so here's something spicy. Next up is the final story that has been written to date. That means it's time to start examining and trying to predict where the story may go from here. There's a tidbit from Scars that I want to share with you. It's from that tape that Bradshaw and Lyman were delivered in the middle of the road, the one that, once decoded and viewed, led to Lyman's timely demise.
Perhaps you should make haste and bring my stars to Mandeville. The victim and the liar must face vindication. The longer you stall, the more death we shall bring to you. Remember, only the truth can open the door to peace. Lies will only bring you more death.
Now, if all this talk of Lou's victimhood hasn't immediately flagged things up to you, I'll make my own thoughts plain. Lou is the victim referred to in this line, and following that logic, Randy must be the liar. His cover story, provided by Officer Williamson, freeing him of guilt and implicating the Woods boys as the aggressors outside the video store and in the flare gun incident. So, the question is, what happens once the two of them are in Mandeville? Lou's story sets him on the path to fulfill this prophecy, I suppose we should call it. Perhaps, if we read Randy's story, then we can glean a little more insight. So let's do that, shall we? This is the story that begins all the way back in Scars of Corruption. One of the main reasons I chose to tell this story out of order, instead of by following each character, is simply so that I could build to the moment that made me realize this story might actually be good somehow. One of the things I left out is to explain the fall of Mandeville. See, Lou's autobiography certainly played a part, but what truly blew the top off the police conspiracy and corruption was the recorded interview between Jeff the Killer and the reporter. That reporter then became Jeff's third victim, as you might remember. However, to put it simply, that may have been a cover-up, a frame job to suppress the release of said interviews by the authorities of Mandeville. The other thing that destroyed the credibility of the entire police department was a little ledger Maxwell accidentally left on his bedside table as he left into witness protection. The little planner was picked up by a mover and eventually found its way into the FBI databases. The book contained dates and times at which Maxwell was meeting with members of the Mandeville PD, which corroborated Jeff and Lou's story of Officer Williamson covering up Randy's actions and implicating the Woods brothers as the perpetrators. Now, living in Park City, Utah, without the abundance of wealth, power, and respect the Haydens had enjoyed in Mandeville, it's a challenge. For Randy, sure, it's a change. But even more so for his father. Maxwell Hayden and his tiny, tiny dick are not sure how to function in a world where they don't have the power of wealth over everyone around them. And it's not just co-workers and neighbours that he could pressure with his income, but his family, his son and his wife. Randy tells the story of his life under Maxwell's rule, and it's truly horrifying. The pressure put on Randy to always be the best, to outshine everyone around him at sports, in his social circle. Maxwell bullied Randy into always being a step ahead of everyone around him, to the point where he felt like a fake person, always pretending to be someone he didn't even like. Whoa, 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 whoa. What's that? Bullying? Oh my god, it's a twofer. Look at that bad parenting. And once again, we see the cycle develop here. Maxwell bullying his son is precisely what causes Randy to become the bully. The trauma Maxwell inflicts is why Randy inflicts trauma onto Jeff. That savage trauma is what causes Jeff to snap and evolve from Jeff Woods into Jeff the Killer. Combined with his own lifelong battle with his terrible parents, my god, it comes full circle. The themes begin to come together. You're seeing it all here, folks, in this final hour of the story. Everything begins to knit to create our full tapestry of themes. Banning, you spicy little minx, writing a good story about Jeff the Killer. What are you like? Randy developed a way to cope with the constant pressure, however, a strategy he refers to as Randy Rich. This persona is the Randy that we see assaulting Jeff. The kid that renders Troy and Keith subservient little lackeys via his power and status. And the Randy we see talking to Jeff in his bedroom on that fateful day before the parents left, that's the other guy. That's Randy Real. All the things Randy said that day to Jeff about his feelings for the town, for his father, for Troy and Keith, none of that was dishonest. Randy Real never wanted any of this, never wanted to hurt Jeff, but Randy Rich, that black hole created by the constant pressure of his father, had no choice. Randy explains that the whole day, luring Jeff in, having Randy's mother take Jeff's mother away, that was all a part of Maxwell's plan. Maxwell never told his son to grab a flare gun and shoot Kid in the face, but he did create an opening and tell his son to get even, to stay one step ahead. And Maxwell's behaviour, the treatment of his wife and his son, is actually putrid. The guy is a slithering pile of dead slugs, snails, and other spineless invertebrates. On Randy's 14th birthday, Maxwell hired a prostitute to sleep with Randy. His reasoning is that this will keep Randy ahead of his peers. And geez, what kid wouldn't dream of this? Maxwell insists that he would have killed for such an opportunity at Randy's age. It's the reasoning of a snot-nosed bin-bag man who was once a 25-year-old virgin with a 6-figure income, fantasizing about women letting him within 50 feet of them. Maxwell sucks. He sucks. The story and scars of Randy and the sex worker Cherry is the moment that I realized this story was going to be really worth my time. I had not planned to talk about it all for this long, but sometimes life comes at you fast. Randy is deeply uncomfortable, as one might expect of a son whose father is attempting to take control of his sex life and sexual development. Randy goes upstairs with the lady of the night, and she realizes how uncomfortable he is, and she tells him that they don't have to do anything. They can just talk, and he can tell his father he did it. They do thusly, and Randy explains his relationship with his father to Cherry, and in return, she gives him a tip on how to cope, to pretend to be someone else. That's how Randy Rich is born, as Randy's public persona. When Randy comes downstairs with a big smile and gives his father the thumbs up, it's the first time he feels like his father is proud of him. It's just so disturbing. As we know, he bullies Jeff. Jeff goes nuts. Randy and the fam go into witness protection. Randy becomes Sean Beckett, living in Park City, Utah. The family isn't impoverished, but they're a lot less well endowed than the days of Mandeville. Maxwell blames his son entirely for the whole debacle, for his failure to control Jeff, but now, a few years older, bigger, and having gone through all he has, Randy has changed. He's not the kid that sits stationary beneath his father's thumb. The Beckett family, unlike the Haydens, are eternally wreathed in discourse, arguments breaking out at the dinner table night after night as Randy and Maxwell clash. Randy's mother feels much the same, though less vocally. She too had to suffer under Maxwell's rule for that many years. In Mandeville, she was a socialite, living the affluent lifestyle, but that doesn't pay the bills, and Maxwell's constant threats of divorce kept her trapped and obedient lest she lose everything she's come to know. Could she even make it on her own? She doesn't know anymore. One night, the argument between Maxwell and Randy becomes especially heated. Maxwell's favourite insult for his son is to call him a sissy, presumably for not living up to his father's expectations of a man, until Maxwell finds a different insult, that little slur that starts with an F, and it's not Funky Monkey. So, staggering reveal, Randy is a boy that kisses other boys. One that hadn't felt comfortable coming out to his parents, so this moment is as much a shock to Randy as it is to us. Maxwell considers taking it back for a second, but then the little worm man decides to double down instead. But yeah, Randy, I know what you like. Your friend Victor, he's not just a friend, is he? I could tell the way you look at each other, the way your eyes light up with queer delight when he comes over you. So, weird line, but okay. I thought I was just imagining things until I saw a couple of your emails. Yeah, I raised a son who couldn't even succeed at being a son. Why should I expect anything now from a fucking limp-wristed... And then Randy beats the shit out of him. Randy drove his fist into his father's jaw, taking satisfaction from the impact. Is this what I was supposed to do, Dad? He screamed, watching his father fall backwards. Randy grabs him by the shirt collar and delivered another punch to his face, this time fetching a nice pop under his right eye. Like this, Dad? Is this what I was meant to do with Jeff Woods that day? Just kick him around? Catharsis. Such sick, blessed catharsis. I mean, this is another rotation in the cycle of violence and bad parents and trauma and themes, but suck it, Maxwell, burn in hell. And of course, this pulls a parallel to Jeff's turning on Randy and the gang back in Mandeville, taking control through violence. And let's put that up in the themes here. Control. It's mentioned multiple occasions. But here's the thing. I don't quite know what to make of the message being conveyed around control. See Jeff's killers, the backwards cult that worshipped Jeff's actions when he, in their words, showed the world you could do something about abuse. To my mind, there are four main sufferers of abuse in this story. Jeff, Randy, Lou, and Nina. And in the cases of Nina, Lou, and Jeff, this abuse is primarily in the form of neglect. For Nina, it is exclusively, as far as we are aware. Lou and Jeff are also abused by Randy and pals, and by the system, man. And of the four cases, I would argue that two of them are successful in breaking free and taking back control, Randy and Jeff, and in both cases, they beat their abusers through pretty unmitigated physical violence. Lou fails pretty outright to beat his abuse and abusers. Obviously his parents are deceased, but he lets the trauma and abuse control him. He lets himself be abused and controlled by Carter. His is clearly the bad ending. Lou took the wrong path to salvation. Nina is on the crossroads of figuring out how to deal with her abuse through violence or by letting Bradshaw in and moving forward with her life. We've yet to see how she moves forward with her life and how the story will end. What this basically means is that as it stands, the lesson to be taken about abuse is that if you want to beat it, the solution to abuse is through fear and physical violence to make sure your abuser never messes with you again, which seems unconstructive. Well, Randy's mother steps into the middle of Randy and his father, berates Maxwell with an impressively eloquent and detailed monologue given the tense situation. She reveals in her diatribe that Randy has money waiting for him, a trust fund set up waiting for him that he can claim when he turns 20. Did I say in his name? I meant Randy's name, because remember, that's not him. He's Sean Beckett. This means that to get the money, he'd have to break his witness protection. He asks some related questions online, messaging into what are essentially Randy hate groups to ask how people would feel if Randy did come back into the public eye, and this provokes the eyes of an online user known as Alexis Perry. Alexis is an ardent anti-Randy character, and these messages, matched with his full screen name and Randy's other online activities, like asking legal groups about claiming trust funds, well, it all gets a little sussy for Alexis. So she engages to hack Randy's account, and she manages to dig up emails to Randy's lawyer about the trust fund, which confirms his identity. She doxes that bitch. So now Sean Beckett's cover-up is blown. He's out into the limelight as Randy Hayden. Saves him questioning whether to break witness protection, I suppose. Meanwhile, somewhere in Mandeville, Jane Arkansas is giving Derek Reynolds directions to a safety deposit box that contains Drake Arkansas's journals. Derek retrieves said journal and presents it to Dalton Bradshaw at his home. In this journal is Drake's log of a conversation he had with Maxwell Hayden in March of that year. Maxwell had called Drake to warn him, which doesn't seem very Maxwell-like, but perhaps it made him feel like he had some kind of power over that little town still. Maxwell explained a lot in that phone call. He had been contacted by Dr. Sawyer before Randy's birth. Sawyer asked that he be allowed to use Randy in some social experiment, one that wouldn't intrude on his life all too much, but the details of what Sawyer was actually doing with Randy throughout his formative years is never explained in depth, only alluded to. It appears to have something to do with the red, green, blue game, doesn't it always? Randy Rich and Randy Real are somehow byproducts of that. The red makes you hate, the green makes you fake, the blue makes you you. Maxwell is also under the impression that somehow embroiled in this experiment is Jeff Woods, which goes some way to explaining why there was that camera footage before the events in 2015. Maybe this is something to do with those stresses and weights Matt Woods said he and his wife were suffering from back in Lou's story. And that's why Randy, now publicly revealed, is being harassed by Jeff's killers, and one night, action is taken. A cultist enters Randy's home and drugs him. Randy awakes in his home. But something is wrong. Very wrong. First off, the TV is showing only a red screen, and second off, there's a voice coming from his bedroom. As the scene unfolds, we realize that this isn't Randy's apartment. This is some creation of his own brain. This is the programming. This is the red, green, blue game. Randy tries to track down the voice, but the path to his bedroom stretches away from him, like that staircase in Mario. Someone should have told him to backwards long jump. A new voice chimes in somewhere else, telling Randy he can beat the red by finding the green, by being fake. As the lights begin to go green throughout the house, Randy finds that Randy Rich with him, the big stepper who strikes fear into those who stand before him. Suddenly, he finds himself on the streets of Mandeville, flanked by Troy and Keith, and feeling invincible. They tear through the streets to hunt the voice down to that place where it all started, that little video store. They kick the door down, and there it is, something cowering under a pile of rags. "The blue makes you you," the voice beneath the blanket announced, and in that moment, Randy was reduced into Randy real. Troy and Keith are dead. He's a pariah, hated by the entire nation, his entire life manipulated by Sawyer and his associates. Before whatever comes next arrives, a new voice interrupts. "Clarissa, we have to go," a new voice interjected. Randy didn't recognize it, nor did the name Clarissa ring any bells. "How dare you interrupt, Noah? I'm in the middle of a session. It's the police. They just kicked in the front door, some guy with a camera too. We have to leave, now." Dalton and crew bust in and find Randy Hayden in some little forgotten house, way out in the backwoods of Mandeville. His captors already fled. The next week, they're interviewing on Newsroom, preparing to out Dr. Sawyer and his wretched experiment to the world. Randy, Bradshaw, Derek, and Nina as well. The lights go on, and Randy begins to tell the whole terrible affair, the psychological programming, how it all started so many years ago, and who Dr. Sawyer is. The man's face is put up in full view of households across the nation. And then static begins to fill the screen as the signal is hijacked. Two masked figures and Dr. Sawyer. However, this time, Sawyer is not in charge. He's bound. The two masked figures speak.
To those watching this broadcast, be advised that Randy Hayden is telling no lies. Joseph Sawyer is indeed the creator of this experiment. His vision to test the limits of humanity through control, reward, punishment, and fear and pleasure will not be jeopardized now, not even at his own hands. For all that follows is now the result of the testing, the planning, the phases, and this control variables. All have been set in direction. There remains only one final piece to this puzzle. The piece that goes far beyond anything Joseph Sawyer is expected to handle. Randy Hayden has already turned over everything he knows to the authorities, yet we still remain. The project still moves forward. All of you will see very soon now. The wait is almost over. Goodbye, Father. You have served your purpose, and we shall not disappoint you.
They draw blades, and Sawyer's life is cut short, live, across the nation. And then the screen goes red. Kill someone begins to flash. Within minutes, 911 call centers across the United States light up. And that is everything Banning has published to date. It's over. It's done. I'm so tired. I've been doing this for so long. I've been talking about Jeff the Killer for, well, I mean, what you've seen 2 hours, but for me it's been a month and a half, just lost out here in this jungle. But we're not quite done yet. Even with all of the Mandeville Banning universe talked through, there is still yet more to talk about, and it won't take me too long. We are nearly at the end of this ride. But before we can finish, we need to talk about one more last little thing. We've talked about his past, we've talked about his origins, we've talked about his stories, but now we need to talk about where he is now. We need to talk about his legacy. So, where is our baby boy Jeff now? A quick search on TikTok produces results like any jaunt through that ephemeral nightmare. There's a lot of cosplay, some sexy, some supposed to be creepy. I kind of love this series from some guys who found Jeff the Killer that popped up several times throughout my adventures into the fandom.
What? Dude, oh my god! Oh my god! What's he doing? Yo, that's Jeff the Killer!
I don't seem to understand how to find the rest of the series, because this is part 2 of that series, uploaded by some random guy, and I don't know how to find the original, because I don't understand TikTok. In a very similar vein of being completely out of my realm of understanding is this Roblox game, Doors, in which Jeff is a minor antagonist as of the April Fool's update. So Roblox is like a RPG Maker situation with fan games within it that are considered standalone experiences, and one of them is called Doors. Jeff is in it. I don't know what else to add onto that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Google Trends will tell you that Jeff is at 18% of his peak popularity, and I would likely attribute 2 or 3% of that to me working on this project. His time has passed. The world has grown up and moved on. The kids that used to read every piece of fanfic and draw their own art have become adults, and adults don't need Jeff. They don't need to overcome their parents. At some point, you will learn to accept that you can't control the chaos of life, no matter how much your psyche snaps. Lashing out doesn't solve anything. You don't take control by beating your abusers into submission. I mean, it'll be very satisfying, but you still have to live with it. You win by letting go of that angst, moving past your trauma, accepting that it is part of you, but that doesn't mean you have to let it control you. Jeff is weak. You know that Batman meme where it's like being a kid is thinking Batman's the hero, growing up is realizing the Joker makes more sense? That's stupid. The person that makes sense is the person who moves out of Gotham City, because it's pretty clear there's something in the water out there, man. And on the same note, the people who were on here repping for Nina, wanting to be taken in as Jeff's prodigy or girlfriend or whatever, those are the same kids that posted about Harley and the Joker being goals 4 years ago. No, they're not. He's abusive and a literal psychopath and will not emotionally support you. Babe, you can do better. Actually, let's put one thing to rest while we're here. Jeff is consistently referred to as a Joker ripoff in wiki entries, and this seems to be worn as a badge to completely shut down any fans. I can picture a 15-year-old Jeff hater talking to a 14-year-old Jeff lover and saying, yeah, well, he's just a Joker ripoff. He's got this smile put into his own face like probably the Dark Knight Joker did, and he's a total psychopath, so he's just a Joker. Like, maybe Jeff was written by someone picturing it as the origin of Heath Ledger's Joker. But if so, they completely failed to understand the point of that character. Like Hughes says, he just does things and doesn't have a plan. So if you just ignore the whole film where he does have a plan and an end goal, yeah, he's pretty much just a psycho killer. The Joker is nihilism incarnate, which is still probably horribly underrepresenting him, but he's not just an angry kid who stabs people with a big knife, so who cares if he was inspired by the Joker? Any resemblances are superficial to the point where it's pretty much irrelevant. So, there you go. I settled it. And here we are. End of the journey. Top of the mountain. It's taken me places I never expected to go, down weird little rabbit holes. I've learned a lot, not just about Jeff the Killer, but about making videos. That little light on the M track, that shouldn't go red. That means the audio's gonna sound like shit. Don't set the ring light to yellow. That's gonna look gross on camera, and you're gonna have to color correct it all in post. And I've flubbed a lot of lines throughout this thing. Some that I didn't even notice, some that I couldn't edit out, some that I didn't want to because they made me laugh. And here, at the top of this mountain, at the end of our journey, we can see in all directions. Banning's post-2015 verse to the west, and the pre-2015 canon to the east, and to the south, the endless lost undergrowth of the Jeff the Killer image, and to the north, all the video game... Oh, shit, I didn't talk about the video games. Well, I want to get this video out. It's been way too long. I've taken way too long talking about Mandeville stories. Oh, we're just going to pretend there's nothing to the north. Okay, ignore that. That's not there. Again, though, enough interest, and I will go back into that eastern wasteland of pre-2015 Jeff lore, and I will look down every nook and cranny to find the most obscure and hilariously stupid canon. And while I'm there, I'll discuss the games too. How about that? And then it's all there. Everything you could want. And if that is something you're interested in discussing, then you'll have to like, subscribe, ring the bell, maybe hand out some flyers? You know, is that too much to ask? Put some letters through some neighbors' doors? Key my name into the side of some cars, you know? The bare minimum. You have been watching this video for 2 hours. Come on, man. So, is there nothing to be taken from Jeff the Killer? Is there no lesson to be learned? Let's talk for a moment, not about imaginary characters, but a real one. Banning Kellum is a 45-year-old man from New Orleans, Louisiana. That shouldn't be surprising to anyone. Why else would his stories be set out there? But still, I wasn't expecting to go to his YouTube channel and hear quite how southern this man is.
Time to break out those moves of yours? Oh yeah, we're gonna break out some moves. I'm so tired that I'm old, and that sometimes I wake up with new pains in my joints. And sometimes I wake up more tired than when I went to bed. It sucks being in your 40s. And let me tell you about the pissing. Have you ever pissed for 3.5 minutes? I sometimes have to do that early in the morning, and my f***ing God, I hate it.
He seems to, from all angles, be a very friendly, helpful guy living his life and occasionally dropping out these stories. But here's the thing. His socials, linked on his creepypasta page, they're all dead. His YouTube last uploaded 6 months ago, and even that is just a video of him streaming something. That whole story I told you about banning stories, those are done. Randy was released in 2019. In an interview I read while Banning was writing Randy, he said he planned for it to be the last one, and... well, so, why is it like that? Why is it unfinished? Why is it so short? The story of Randy feels rushed, it feels unpolished. There's a reason why the shortest part of the section I wrote on Randy was from his actual story. The comments section is full of the same emotions I'm giving you now, people wondering when the next entry is coming, but sorry guys, I don't think it's coming. It's a story to be left unconcluded. Characters will remain in limbo. What makes this series so special, though, is its origins. The pre-2015 Jeff the Killer canon is like a pile of random furniture and bricks and building materials. People just coming up to the pile and throwing stuff on, and sometimes people go up and take things out, or point out a particularly neat chair and say, yeah, that's a cool chair, and everyone agrees, and then more stuff just keeps getting piled around it. And then one day, Banning comes along, and he looks at the pile, and he says, let's make something out of this. And he takes all those parts, all the cool furniture that everyone's picked out, and he gathers it together, and he assembles it. He molds it into a house, one coherent structure. And then, just before he's done, he leaves. And now, when you go in, you see all these beautiful pieces of furniture, the polished countertops, and the ornaments in the fireplace. But when you go upstairs, there's nothing there. It's just empty. But maybe that's how it should be. Banning gave this place structure, and now we get to go back to that place, pick out our favorites, except now we're not just throwing them on a pile. We've got structure, we've got a room to decorate. And there's no huge community out there finishing what Banning started in their own ways, but you and me, we get to wonder. We get to look at those empty rooms and say, what would go well in here? I wonder what would be here if Banning had finished. What would I want? We get to decide that. That's ours. It falls to us to finish it. Maybe someone watching this video right now will pick it up and fill the rest of those rooms, and we can all say, yeah, I like that. That can stay. Jeff the Killer is a story that is never over. It can always be built on. And I don't know how to sum this all up better than that. I've been lost in this rabbit hole for so long that... well, I think I'm finally ready to find a way out and find a new project to lose myself in. So, with all this now said, I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe. We need to talk about his legacy. Ugh.